Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight to the meeting of Monday, February 26, 2024, the Amherst Town Board. I'm going to ask everybody to please rise for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dennis? I would ask our town clerk to please call the roll.
Yes. Okay. Supervisor Copa?
I would ask everybody please settle down. No kidding. I would ask our town clerk to please call the roll.
Supervisor Copa?
Here.
Councilmember Berger?
Here.
Councilmember Lavin?
Present.
And Councilmember Marinucci?
Here.
All right. The next item on our agenda, the approval of minutes from February 5th, 2024. I'll motion those as they appeared.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 173, we've had a request to adjourn that to March 25th. I'm going to motion to adjourn the public hearing to March 25th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on our agenda is Resolution 174, miscellaneous sanitary sewer relining and manhole rehabilitation. It's a bond resolution, in the amount of $500,000, and I would ask Jeff Burrows to please present that. I'll motion to open the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening, members of the board, Supervisor Culpa. My name is Jeff Burrows. I am the town engineer, and I am presenting one of two public hearings to you tonight. The first one is the bond hearing for the miscellaneous sanitary relining and manhole rehab. A portion of this is what we're funding, and which is the miscellaneous sewer repairs. Projects, 2024 project CIP, 2024 CIP project S3. So we'll talk a little bit about the project details, and I'll go right into the financial summary and the tax summary, and then end with questions. This is a pretty quick presentation. This particular project and the funds from it will support work to be performed by a private contractor. It's mostly dig and replace segments of sanitary sewer that have failed. Some of the work is done prior to relining the sanitary. Some of it's based on our closed circuit television and cleaning system repairs, notes that we take during repairs or during that assessment. So it's as needed. Typically, we do about 120 segments in a year, which is about $500,000 worth of work. It's a labor and equipment contract. The town supplies all the materials in this contract. So it's a $500,000 bond. There's $2,500 in legal and administrative fees. That ends up to an annual tax impact on a $300,000 property of 88 cents per year. And with that, I'll open it up to questions or comments.
Okay, questions from this board on miscellaneous sanitary sewer relining and manhole rehab? It's a project that's been successful for us in the past. Are there questions or comments from the audience relative to this public hearing? One, come on forward.
My name is Don Smith, North Lung. I'm always interested to ask this question, how an estimate of $500,000 is so cleanly hit. What was the algorithm used to come up with that estimate? Is it a historic-based estimate? Is it an ASME-based estimate, or is it any other type of estimate in terms of, a handbook on how these things are made? Or is it possible that you may go under this estimate? Is it possible you may go over this estimate? And if so, in either case, what do you do with the excess? Thank you very much.
So this is a historical estimate that we utilize. It depends on the year. Sometimes we'll spend 500,000. Some years we'll spend 550,000. But in general, this is a not to exceed on this particular project. So we will not go over 500,000. If there's money left over in the bond, from what I understand, they use it to pay down the principal.
It does. It goes back to pay down the principal as in the debt service fund. Any further questions from the audience? Please come forward.
Shelley Schratz, Kensington Avenue. It's a question about sewers, and I just want to know, are our sewer fees paid up by Erie County and Clarence? Are we owed any money? As is a form of transparency, for years we were owed a lot of money. So I just want to be sure that our sewer fees are being collected from the County of Erie and Clarence.
Yes, I can tell you that from Erie 5, which incorporates the town of Clarence, and then the town of Clarence itself and the village of Williamsville were made whole on all of those.
Okay, because I know there was an issue with the fire departments up to the part of their issue, so thank you.
Yep. Okay. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I'm sorry. I'm going to withdraw that motion. Thank you. I'm going to motion to adopt the seeker findings associated with the project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I will motion to adopt the bond resolution in the amount of $500,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Do you need a voice vote for a bond?
I'm sorry, Ian, we need a voice. So I'm going to ask the town clerk for a voice vote, please.
Supervisor Copa,
Yes.
Councilmember Berger,
Yes.
Councilmember Lavin,
Yes.
and Councilmember Marinucci.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Resolution 175 is a parallel peanut line design and mini study. It's a bond resolution in the amount of $275,000. I'm going to motion to open the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jeff, if you would again.
Okay, thank you Supervisor Culpa, members of the board. Again, Jeff Burrows, town engineer. This is my second public hearing. And this is a project, this is a blended project where we're taking two projects, and this is a 5-year bond issuance on this because it's design related and planning related. Again, we'll talk a little bit about the locations on this particular project, and then we'll talk about details in the financial summary and the tax summary. And then I'll open it up to questions. Project locations for this, so the peanut line, the parallel peanut line project is, there's an interceptor that runs down the old peanut line right away from Transit Road to the Audubon Industrial Park, where then it turns north and goes into the treatment plant and the mainline interceptor. A portion of that line from Transit to Paradise Road is currently nearing capacity. The particular issue with that is we also have issues on the Dodge Road interceptor. So the parallel peanut line is going to help, the construction of that parallel peanut line is going to help alleviate those issues on the Dodge Road interceptor by diverting some of the flow down that line. In addition, that particular project also creates additional capacity available along Transit Road and east. The second part of this project we're going to use to support our mini system studies, which are in Eggertsville and Snyder, mini systems 2, 3, and 4. We're going to use that a portion of this project also to support those studies that we're going to take in the future. So we talked a little bit about the parallel peanut line. This is for final design. The preliminary design's already been completed. The survey's already been completed. The geotechnical investigation's already been done. It's already been costed. This proposed new interceptor will divert flow from North French Dodge Road, down Transit Road, across Transit Road, from Transit to Paradise, where the sewer then opens up to a 30-inch sewer. So it's the construction of approximately 38 lineal feet and a 120-foot bore underneath Transit Road. It's important to note that the town is only funding about 20% of this sewer, and this design is also reimbursable in our intermunicipal agreements with the county and Erie County 5. It's anticipated that the construction of the parallel peanut line is a 2025 or 2026 project. It's currently in the CIP for, I believe, for 2026. The second half of this project is the sanitary sewer mini system study work that we're doing. As you're aware, the town's CMOM, Capacity Management Operation and Maintenance Plan, was recently approved by the DEC. That plan mandates mini system studies, a very methodical way of going through the sewers in Amherst, evaluating, metering, and smoke testing to remove as much wet weather flow as possible. The smaller portion of this project will be used to support that study of mini systems 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is pretty much Eggertsville proper. That will include, we'll use it for supplemental flow monitoring, which will be a private contractor, and procurement of enhanced smoke test equipment, which we will perform in-house. So the split on this project is approximately $75,000 for the mini system work, and the final design for the parallel peanut line is $199,000 for a total amount to be bonded of $275,000. That taxation summary is about $1.47 per year for $300,000 property. And with that, I will turn it over to the board for questions and comments.
Okay, questions from this board first?
I'm really glad to see that we've gotten to this stage.
Okay, any questions from the audience on this project? Please come forward. I would ask you to just state your name and address for the record.
Diane Gordon, Chateau Terrace. I just wanted to clarify, initially you said with the mini project it was going to be Snyder and Eggertsville, and then you said Eggertsville. Can you clarify that, please?
So we will be working into the Snyder area,
How far?
the entirety.
Oh, so it's not just
But it's broken
Eggertsville.
into sewer sheds.
Okay.
It's broken into chunks that are manageable
Okay.
for us to do on an annual basis.
Anything further from the audience this evening? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to motion to adopt the seeker findings associated with the project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I will motion to adopt the bond resolution, in the amount of $275,000.
Second.
On the question, I would ask the town clerk for a voice vote, please.
Supervisor Copa,
Yes.
Councilmember Berger,
Yes.
Councilmember Lavin,
Yes.
and Councilmember Marinucci.
Yes.
All right, next item on the agenda is Resolution 117, a continuation of a public hearing on the designation of the property at 22 Chateau Terrace as a local historic landmark. I'm going to motion to reopen the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I assume there's nobody here from the property owner. We did receive a letter. I will ask that that letter be incorporated into the public hearing record from Benderson Corporation. And with that, I would open it up for representative from the community.
All right, Tim, thank you. Sam Smith, Fruhoff Avenue. One thing I do want to point out is on February 5th, Benderson did submit about an inch packet, and that is not in today's agenda minutes or last agenda minutes. So we were able to get access to that information, but it's not actually public knowledge still. So again, going over 22 Chateau Terrace, can you go to the next slide, please? Is the clicker working today? It does work today? Yay. Okay, so I just want to point out, many people, again, Benderson, as well as the town board and throughout the town have said, why do we keep trying to fight this? And this is a very important quote. So in the end, we will conserve only what we love only what we understand, and understand only what we are taught. So you can't understand or love, you can just say, I love something in my community and not understand what it is. And then because of what has happened, we have become more and more educated and figuring things out. So I want to point out one of the things that Benderson said within their most recent letter on February 19th. Back from rezoning, there was no discussion of this property having any historical significance when the town board changed the zoning. In fact, if the town board believed this house could have any historic significance, why, only 3 years ago, would it remove the residential zoning of this property and place it into a commercial zoning district, only to then deem it a landmark and prevent redevelopment under the new zoning code? We also agree with that. So back in 2021, that property was rezoned. I don't know if does the laser work on this? Yes, it does. Look at that. Okay, so this is the area. This is 17 Fruhoff Avenue, and right here, that's 22 Chateau Terrace. So specifically, when this was rezoned, we asked. Christina Coyle-Lenz said why there would be chateau properties that are included in the commercial rezoning for Main Street District. Then Michael Zelsky asked, again, why are there houses immediately behind commercial properties on Main Street, including in any of the rezoning? And there were actually 4 residential homes that were part of the rezoning. So people were asking in regards to Benderson's point, and this was the answer that we got. 17 Fruhoff Avenue was actually a house in the 1923 Sanborn map that we showed you at the last meeting, but currently it is a parking lot because it has caught fire, like most of Snyder, at one point or another. 22 Chateau Terrace, we were told, we think this is a logical extension of the geography. So they're saying that because we just want to draw straight lines, we rezone that property. That was the answer we got in rezoning back in 2021. It was in Zoom. If you lived in a household, more than one person frequently could not talk, and we didn't know what the rules were during Zoom. And frequently, when you come to these town board meetings and you have questions, you learn a lot from people who are in these town board meetings. When you're on a Zoom, you don't know what the next step is. And who are we supposed to email when the government is, in a sense, basically shut down? How many people email, I'm not saying shame on the board, but how many people email the board? Because those are the emails that we have access to. And how many people get responses? So that was back in 2021. And theoretically, you have 30 days or a month to change a decision. But that's why that 22 Chateau was rezoned in the first place, is because we think it is a logical extension of the geography. So again, this is explaining the scope of the project. This is where the original district was, and it did not include 22 Chateau and 22 Chateau or 17 Fruhoff Avenue. So then the next one is who can nominate a property? Because in the February 5th text, Benderson said, if you allow people who don't own property to nominate them, then you are setting a precedent. So I would like to let the town board know that it's not a bad precedent to allow people to, who don't own the property to seek landmark designation, and a bad precedent has not been set historically from the town board because you have done this before. In 2002, Amherst Town Board voted to designate the entire 1.6 acres of the gatehouse site on Main Street as a landmark. Initially, the town was going to designate just the gatehouse and a strip of land where the stone fence stands. However, residents fought to protect the entire site, including the grounds and the grove of trees, which were important contextually to the building and the wall. So, again, it is very important. You see it on Main Street. You have done this before and landmarked because contextually something is not just the house, but it's also the property. It's not what the landowner wanted, who was Snyder Development Company at the time, but the right thing to do was to landmark that property because it had significant historical importance. Other examples of properties, so that's the gatehouse down there. Other examples are Sacred Heart Academy, which again, the property owners did not want landmarked and was landmarked. And the other one is the stone house on the Park School campus. The other thing is actually, Benderson then says, you can't landmark something that you do not own. So then Benderson actually went and tried to landmark 70 houses that they in fact do not own on Chateau Terrace, part of the Chateau Terrace district. Then they counteracted that and said, basically, we were bullied by the HPC into doing that. The HPC, there's no video of that, but from the minutes, it does not imply that. It just says, when we look at something from a historical landmark setting, a local landmark designation holds a heavier protective weight than a state and national registration. So we recommend that if you're going to landmark, you do a local landmark designation. That is what they said to them, and Benderson is trying to say they were bullied into submitting a district designation. However, part of SHPO's recommendation with the district designation includes the properties on Main Street, which they conveniently left out. So then you have Benderson submitting in the February 5th, again, argument that because of the report that they got from Commonwealth Group, which they paid for, said that 22 Chateau Terrace does not appear to meet the state and national register of places criteria for individual eligibility, and no conflicting expert supports reports have been provided that contradict that of Commonwealth Heritage Group. However, SHPO sent a letter to Benderson on 4/17/2023, saying that all the properties are of historic value at a state and national level. And then Benderson didn't do anything. And that was before a site plan was even approved. The town of Amherst also did not follow SHPO's request for a higher, and a higher agency was basically ignored. So are we saying SHPO is not experts because Benderson, in their current argument, said basically no experts have refuted Commonwealth. So according to them, SHPO is not an expert, nor is the town of Amherst experts and the Historic Preservation Commission in their view. So this is what SHPO again said, that the home at 22 Chateau Terrace and the commercial buildings located at 4564 Main Street contribute to the eligible district. So they also say, please note that demolition of these listed eligible buildings is defined as an adverse impact to these historic resources. And they recommend that they retain the buildings, rehabilitate them, rather than demolish them. Furthermore, they actually have to follow SHPO's recommendation because the property soil disturbance was supposed to be 1.02 acres. If it's above 1 acre, you have to get a speedies permit, and that goes to SHPO. They then are trying to say, we are helping you by saving the house. And by saving the house, part of our plans, we're the good guys, but instead what they did was they made it less than an acre of soil disturbance so that they don't need to go through SHPO, because they know if they went through SHPO, their whole plans would not be accepted. And they would have to actually do something to change their plans. So again, SHPO sent something to Benderson on April 17th. On April 19th, here's actually a letter from Dan Howard from the planning department who said authorization from the Town of Amherst Historic Preservation Commission prior to the issuance of a permit to demolish any structures of the property will be a condition of any site plan approval and will need to occur prior to issuance of final approval of site plan drawings. So somehow, between SHPO and the planning department, these are actually all the buildings and properties which were supposed to have approval, and yet somehow this recommendation, this review, has gotten ignored. I have tried to ask over actually like the past year why this has happened, and I am still waiting for an answer. So the funny thing is, let's go back to those addresses. Here's 4548 Main Street, 4564 Main Street, 17 Fruhoff, 22 Chateau Terrace. This is 4560. There actually is no permit, from what I understand, for 4560. There's no, in the documentation, nothing about 4560. You have one is the Squire Shop, which was on this side, and you have the M&T Bank, which is on this side. And this is 22 Chateau Terrace. This picture is from about 1935 that we have found. Since the last meeting, we found a picture from about 1920. So it was after I had made this PowerPoint presentation. But this is the structure that actually sits on Main Street. This structure, from what we postulate, is about 100 years old. So new information is actually coming out. And there's currently a hole in the back of the building right now. So with this in mind, with this being probably one of the oldest commercial buildings in all of Snyder, especially on Main Street, by demolishing this, you create a bigger historical context and importance of 22 Chateau Terrace, because this district, this building, which was originally part of the district, now has a hole in the back of it, which could still be repaired if we so chose. So, throughout the process, Benderson has been saying to the HPC that we as the community are weaponizing the HPC. And it's not weaponization, it's a spark. It's a spark of knowledge. We have acts from 2021. Why are we rezoning a residential property? And it started with just rezoning a residential property. And it's a continued cascading event. So we dove into the civics, the history, the bureaucracy, and the law, and learning about how the local government process works. That's not weaponization, that's education and teaching other people. Again, going back to the original quote, in the end, we will preserve only what we love only what we understand only what we are taught. If we are not being taught something, we are teaching ourselves and then having to teach others. So we've learned a lot. We've definitely have missed stuff, and to the point where we feel like, yes, we're running behind, but that still doesn't mean you need to demolish some of the oldest commercial buildings in Snyder or not designate an entire property part of a historic district. And that property in and of itself holds even more weight because of everything else that's going on. So in terms of 22 Chateau, again, the qualifying criteria are the 5A, how it establishes a familiar visual feature of the neighborhood. It is the first house and property. It is the first 80 by 80 residential property that was designated. And apparently I've been saying it's sour and sour, it's sewer and sewer, in their Chateau Terrace district. So it is the first visual residential division from the commercial properties to the residential area. It is the first property. It's not just the house. The house itself embodies a certain particular type of characteristic. From Benderson's recent thing, they said, there's so many things that they said. They said that craftsman style homes are very prevalent in Snyder, and almost every house in Snyder would be significant, and there's many. So this is a craftsman style house. It's stucco, as the HPC has said. It's actually very, very, very rare. But not only that, the HPC has said one of their goals this year was to actually landmark more things, and that was part of their charter this year, is to create more landmarking because there are so many significant things and they are under threat. And just in general, they're not valued. They're teaching themselves, and they are trying to increase preservation. So let's see. However, despite the application pending before it. Oh, so then their other comment was basically they've submitted stuff to the HPC, and the HPC is just taking too long to make a decision. And the community opposition to a project which was approved by the planning board, which it should be noted, does not result in the demolition of the house. So they keep talking about the house and ignoring the fact that they are basically destroying the first residential property, the first 80 by 80 parcel, which sets the tone of the neighborhood. I wish actually all your other boards took as much time as the HPC in doing their research, because it's very thorough. They don't just go and make a decision. I know the planning board needs, like, once something's presented to them, they need 60 days to actually make a decision. So again, and that's 15 minutes already? Okay. So then they also say that it's not associated with the individual lives of people. I know it's been brought up by the board as well as by Benderson. It doesn't have to be a single individual person. It has to do with the events of significant history. So part of this property is significant because it sets the tone for the neighborhood. It is the first residential 80 by 80 lot of this district. And then again, we've seen these all before from the last presentation. But you want the last picture up? Sure. What's the last picture? I don't remember. Oh, was it the the timeline of events? Here, you want that one? The garage. Yeah. So, also, I do want to point out that they did mention about they're going to save the property. Someone in the audience just told me they drove by the property and said that the electrical was removed. So I don't know how the property or the house is supposed to be saved according to Benderson when we start removing further things from the house itself. But thank you.
All right, further comments, please come forward. And again, just state your name and address for record.
Sure. Hi, my name's Mike Kozlowski, Fruhoff Ave. Thank you. So a lot of what I wanted to say has already been covered, so I'm just going to echo a couple points in my 3 minutes that I have here. Specifically, Benderson mentioned point number 4 about how this is a weaponization, and I just want to say that this request is nothing more than an effort to weaponize the landmark designation process, saying that there was no expert testimony, and I'm fairly offended that they think that the Amherst Historic Preservation Committee is not experts and that the New York State SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, is also not an expert. We have been speaking about this, like Sam just said, since 2021 for the rezoning about how it didn't make sense. I want to remind everyone that one of the people that asked the questions was me. That was my very first thing that I ever did in any town meeting ever, was questioning this, and I'm still doing it to this day. What else? Let's just talk about one point real quickly that, again, Sam said that I was hoping she would forget so I could mention, but they pretend like they're the good guys because they said that they're going to save the building, when really what that did is reduce the size of the project to below the level that they would need state permits. And they knew from the letter that we showed that they were not going to get those state permits because of the historic significance of these buildings. 22 Chateau is eligible. It is an important stucco craftsman-style house, of which the HPC thinks there are only 8 in the entire town of Amherst. And I cannot believe that Benderson can come up here and want to destroy the oldest commercial building in Snyder, and nobody is looking into it and saying that that's a bad thing and it should stop. Thank you.
Go ahead, please.
Eric Anson, 57 Fruhoff. I agree with the remarks by Sam and Mike and all the arguments prior to this to save 22 Chateau. Single-family homes in this neighborhood are in very high demand, and I think we'd want to keep the ones that we have. It's a shame that this property was rezoned from residential to commercial. It's a shame that there were a lot of properties in this area rezoned from residential to commercial with existing structures in there. It's not often that life gives you the opportunity to put the genie back in the bottle. But here you have that opportunity. And when it's presented, I think it's important to take advantage of it. You can save 22 Chateau. It's a good first step. It's not the only one, but it's a good step. Thank you.
My name is Amanda Casali. I live at 23 Fruhoff. And I don't know if this is safe to point out, but that is my house there in that bottom right photo. That's how close I live to 23 Fruhoff, or to 22 Chateau. One of the reasons I purchased my house, I grew up in Allentown. One of the things I loved growing up in Allentown is the beautiful architecture and the structures of the buildings and the history of the Western New York homes in that area, and so I couldn't afford to buy a house in Allentown anymore. So when I was looking to buy my house, I felt that Snyder had those things, had those charms, and specifically the neighborhood of Fruhoff and Chateau had those characteristics and had that old home and not that cookie cutter modern houses that you see being built today. So I just want to say that this property is significant to me and my family, one being so close to Chateau. I could see it right out my window, but also just it adds to the neighborhood and the historic charm of Snyder, and I would hate to see that continue to be demolished with a lot of Amherst and new buildings. I also want to point out, Mr. Copa, on the when you spoke on WB and you made a comment that there's a housing crisis in Amherst in New York. But the housing crisis is not because there's lack of homes. If you go to New York City, there's tons of empty million-dollar apartments across the city and in many big cities. The reason there's a housing crisis is there's an affordable housing crisis. And the reason there is an affordable housing crisis is because we're allowing so many big companies and developers to come in, take away single-family homes, take away the American dream, and only offer rental properties. And when one developer controls the price of rental properties across a town, they can charge whatever they want because people need to live somewhere. So by only having rental properties and high-end and very expensive rental properties, people are being priced out of their homes. People need and want affordable housing and single-family homes and home ownership. Home ownership is the American dream, and to continue to remove single-family properties and home ownerships and historic homes for these cookie-cutter developmental rental properties is what's contributing to our affordable housing crisis here in New York, here in Amherst, here in Snyder. So I please hope that you decide to have this historic property be designated. Thank you.
Do I need to sign in?
No, not for a public hearing.
Mary Beth Glose, 20 Chateau Terrace South. I wholeheartedly agree with everything. My neighbors, who I am very proud to say are my neighbors, I live in a wonderful neighborhood. I've met so many people through this process. what Mike said about Benderson calling the shots, and I'm paraphrasing, and I know he didn't use those words. He was much more erudite about it and intellectual. But Benderson has been calling the shots. And if we can feel very much blindsided every step of the way with all the research these young people have done for us, Benderson has blindsided us on every turn. They are not transparent. Just like the board. I don't disagree. And I know we're not allowed to say anything against the board as per the February 5th rules that we were instructed. There were rules on February 5th. Anyway, all I want to say is I don't personally know you. You don't know me. I don't think you've ever even been on my street. Have you driven down Main Street? Do you know what's being knocked down? Do you know how bad it is for my neighborhood on Chateau? Do you know how bad it is for the neighbors on Fruhoff? I feel more betrayed by my town board who was elected. You were elected and we picked you to represent us in good faith. I feel more upset that you are not to be depended upon to represent a neighborhood. A neighborhood. Thank you.
Hi, it's Lisa Dirtle, 92 Chateau Terrace. I came tonight because several weeks ago I was lured to a meeting, two-part meeting on two separate nights, where we participated in a work group for Supervisor Culpa's new plan for Main Street. It was great. We had a wonderful time. I went with neighbors. We went to it was like a breakout meeting for the group that helped plan. And my husband and I went, and I feel like I was lured there because on my drive home that day, the garage was missing at number 22. It's disgusting. I mean, what do you say to that? So what I wanted to talk about, as I was looking over documents before the meeting, and I remember way back when I was first looking into the history of this historic district, which includes the buildings on Main Street between the dead-end Fruhoff and the no outlet Chateau Terrace, and I found out this developer, Benderson, who advertises their profit-driven Bender sizing all over the country. I started looking at what they'd done in other areas, and I mean, we all know this. We can't argue this. This is what they do. We have a history in the town where I've been in for 32 years now of empty Benderson properties, big, ugly buildings, no thought to design. The thought is to design, if I can even call it design, a ridiculous building that is not going to be around for long. It's ugly, it's huge, and it's the most they're going to be able to stick between these two streets. It doesn't belong there. And I'm prefacing what I'm going to say with this because this ends up being the developer, this proposal ends up being the catalyst of my getting involved in historic preservation. I have relatives that do it in Detroit and across the border in Canada, and it brought me it brought me into looking into the history. I love the presentation that was done. And what I wanted to say was that I want to remind you, I submitted on March 23rd, 2023, a very, very well-written and very well-researched, comprehensive application to request the local designation of 4548 Main Street, that commercial building in Snyder that was known as the Squire Building. That just kind of disappeared. And right now I'm watching a backhoe tear the back of the oldest building between the Squire and the M&T Bank they took out. And it's ridiculous. Everybody knows what's happening now, and I know I only have a few seconds left, but I'd love to know what happened to that application and why it's not being moved on, because we have these historic buildings which are part of the district. There is no question about this, but yet it's, is this how the town operates, and can we expect this in the future? I mean, is this what we're going to be doing from now on? I'm just disgusted. I'm disgusted.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Hoban. I live at 216 California Drive, Williamsville, New York. My grandmother, Jenny Schottmiller, and my grandfather, William Schottmiller, they lived on Chateau Terrace. So I'm quite familiar with that street. My mother grew up on Chateau Terrace, Ruth Hoban. Her name was Schottmiller before she got married. They lived in a white house at the very end. I think it was the second house on the left, actually. And I've been there many times. I went to Christ the King Grammar School just down the street, and I had quite a few friends from Christ the King that lived on Chateau Terrace. So we used to go over to the park school and play when we were kids. So I'm very familiar with that street. The houses over there are really one of a kind. And I think it stinks, Brian, I think it stinks that Benderson went there in the middle of the night and tore that garage down at that house. It was terrible. You should be ashamed. Well, I think he's a friend of yours, Brian. I'm sorry, but I think you're connected to the guy somehow. You can deny it. I don't care. Let me continue. I think it stinks. And you know what else? I think that Benderson should build a new garage there exactly, brick for brick, 2x4 by 2x4 shingle, whatever it was. Make the doors look like that again. This fine, don't look at me like that, Madam Berger. I mean, really, Brian, listen, I think that Benderson should be fined. What, a $250 fine? Is that what he's getting fined?
We also applied.
What's the fine?
It was, Dennis, keep going. I'll answer at the end.
Oh, you can tell me now. You can tell me now what the fine is.
What's the fine, Papa?
Tell the public.
Transparency.
What? Just tell us what the fine is.
Finish your statement. I'll answer in a minute.
Okay. The fine, I mean, for Benderson, you got to be joking me. I mean, the fine's like, what, $500? I mean, the guy likes cigars with $500, you know? I mean, really. I mean, that's a joke, you know? I mean, that's what developers do. They go there on a Sunday, or they go there, you know, on a holiday or something, and they tear something down like that. That's what they do, folks. Okay? And then they get a slap on the wrist. It's terrible. It stinks. It just stinks, okay? I mean, you know, okay, I'm ready. What's the fine? I'm done.
So the base fine, there's a base fine of $500, but then there's 4 times the permit fees. That's the most that we're allowed to find, and we did find them the most. And I agree. I almost stopped myself from swearing, but it's awful that they tore down the garage.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree that it's awful.
Yeah, isn't
okay.
Kate Waterman Culpa, isn't she on the historical board?
Dennis, thank you.
I mean, doesn't she supposed to fight? Isn't your wife supposed to fight for this kind of
I just agreed with you. Thank you.
Am I wrong?
HPC nominated the
I have a
property for
suggestion.
landmark.
Before I sit down, I have a suggestion. Why don't you call up Benderson tomorrow morning and say, I've got a solution for this thing. The residents that live on Fruhoff and Chateau Terrace would like you to rebuild that garage that you tore down illegally and make it the way it was.
Thanks, Dennis.
Okay? Thank you.
Diane Gordon
I have-
from
I have
Chateau. Oh,
one
sorry.
minor response to, as the liaison to the HPC, I have met with Vice Chair Waterman Culpa, and her letter supporting this application is included in the agenda packet, separate from the supervisor and things like that, but I did want to make clear that the Vice Chair is in support of this application. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Diane Gordon. I live at 42 Chateau. I've been there for 35 years. I want to echo something that Mike said a few minutes ago about Benderson wants to be the good guy. And just as a small amount of information, about a year ago, a small group of us, the initial group that started this, met with our attorney and Mr. Baglioli at the library, at the Snyder Library. We talked about a number of different things. He explained some things that we didn't agree with, etc. I had read an article in the paper a day or two before about an area, don't hold me to it, I want to say it was near Chandler Street, somewhere in North Tonawanda City, Buffalo, where the neighbors had come out full force against what they wanted to do there, and the developer, who was not Benderson, had listened to the neighborhood and pulled back on their project, made it much smaller, made it more appropriate for the neighborhood it was going to be in. I brought that article with me to the meeting, and I said to Mr. Baglioli, could we learn from this? Could you listen to us and take this with you? We want you to be the good guy. I said those words. We want you to be the good guy. We don't want to have to fight this, but we don't want to lose everything that we're about to lose. And it was poo-pooed. They're not interested in being the good guy. They're not interested in what anybody else thinks. They just went ahead with their plans as if nobody said anything, and they continue to do that.
So I'm Christina Coyle-Lenz, and I'm at 64 East Chateau Terrace. And I was also in that meeting in 2021, and I asked the question about the rezoning. It just didn't seem logical, and geography is absolutely no excuse, none. So I want to say a couple of things about 22 Chateau. On a local level, 22 Chateau Terrace qualifies for local landmark designation based on the 3 qualifying criteria. Waterman Culpa from the town of Amherst HPC wrote a letter from the HPC in support of the local landmark designation. The original packet submitted from the HPC you will find in the original presentation and the application by Jessica Black. This is all very well documented. There is irrefutable evidence for a local landmark designation for 22 Chateau Terrace as a whole property. Whole property means the garage. This takes me back to the day that I drove home from work and felt like I was punched in the stomach with this pile of rubble that used to be a garage. So, to go back to this, on a state and national level, it is also eligible as a property historic to the district, and the HPC recommended local landmark designation. Benderson Development has disregarded the state recommendations and continues to plow through the destruction of this property regardless of what SHPO, TOA, HPC, or TOA planning says. And this is news about the electrical infrastructure being removed from the house. I wonder if the heat's on. I wonder if the plumbing is operational or if it's been dropped. At least dropped so that pipes wouldn't potentially freeze. Given their disregard for following the law, excuse me, are you making notes? I'm presenting. I'm presenting right now. Okay, because you're writing notes to each other, and I'm sorry, that doesn't seem like a polite thing to do. Fine.
made a note about the electrical service. Again, this is the first time we've heard about the electrical service, so
No,
thank
okay,
you.
and I apologize, but you know what? I teach. And when I see that going on in a classroom, I know that people are not listening to what's happening in the front of the room. So here's the thing, and I don't want to be confrontational. I just want us to be respected, all of us to be respected as residents of the town. Given Benderson's disregard for following the law, they have proven to be an unreliable steward of such an historic piece of property. We urge you today with your vote to trust the experts in HPC and ensure that this gateway to the neighborhood stays as such. Please vote to designate the entire property with local landmark status. And with that, I want to go back to something else, because they willfully disregarded, and I spoke about this at the last meeting, they willfully disregarded everything that had been conveyed to them from HPC and from the town board. And the penalty that was imposed, I understand there's limitations to that. And what I would say about those limitations is for a company like Benderson that pays $722,000, which I saw this in Business First, long before the zoning, what they paid for that property was published. And the price that they paid for the property, there's no fine that is even going to come close to anything more than just a minimal cost of doing business. So with that, and thank you, Mr. Hoban, for saying rebuild the garage, I think that they should be held accountable to rebuild a preservation level quality garage on that property.
Hi, Bob Dirtle, 92 Chateau Terrace. I think with the demolition of that garage, Benderson knowingly did that, knowing that the neighborhood had filed legal complaint about their doing it. Town of Amherst has done nothing to thwart Benderson at all. Nothing. It's an insult to the neighborhood. It's an insult to the taxpayers of Amherst. Now they're demolishing 4560 Main Street, which is, one of the oldest buildings, if not the oldest commercial project in Snyder. Is there a permit for that property? For the demolition of it?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Is there?
Yeah, they're pursuing permits filed in our building department. They filed a permit.
But, all right, fine. But the thing is, it's like, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to say anything publicly? How about a big newspaper article, go on BEN and say something about what a piece of crap Benderson is for doing it? Why don't you grow a set?
I'm Judy Ferraro at Donnelly Boulevard. I won't use names because you are all guilty, save one. I have a campaign mailer sent to residents from your fellow board members in 2019. The headline reads, and I quote, "Responsible leadership, putting Amherst residents first." We will protect established neighborhoods, rein in development, preserve green space, promote development that reuses existing structures and matches the character of the neighborhood. Town government will be focused on delivering for residents first, ensuring our tax dollars are spent responsibly, reduce the town debt, end quote. Look what we have ended up with and where we're at today. Reality could not be further from what you proclaimed. It has been the same over and over, election after election. You have betrayed the people of Amherst with your lies and empty promises for way too long. However, you have a chance tonight to do what's right at 22 Chateau Terrace. Put Amherst residents first and listen to what they want for their neighborhood. It isn't hard, just get your priorities straight.
Jane Cox, I live on Harlem Road. I was trying to give the people in the neighborhood the opportunity to speak first, so I was waiting, but I'm jumping in now. At the last town board meeting regarding the historic designation of 22 Chateau, 10 Snyder residents spoke in support of historic designation after the town's Historic Preservation Commission presentation and recommendation to the town board for approval. It is a blue-rated property by the town. It meets 3 of the 5 criteria for historic significance when only 1 criteria is required. No one spoke at that meeting in opposition. Nobody tonight has spoken in opposition. The property owner, who is the developer, did not attend the hearing, submitted last-minute letters, and has already demolished the garage without permission. It's now time for the board to act to protect the house in question. I'm urging you all, please vote tonight for the historic designation. Thank you for your votes.
I just gave them the original photos that I was given of 22 Chateau and the neighborhood before the rest of it was developed, as well as the building on Main. Good evening. Good evening. My name is Jessica Black, and I live at 79 Fruhoff Avenue. Exactly 1 year ago, in February of 2023, I submitted an application to make 22 Chateau Terrace a local historic landmark with the Amherst Historic Preservation Commission because I felt it represented the Chateau Terrace neighborhood and the loss of it would be detrimental. Since then, I've emailed and called the town and state, provided updates to neighbors, and researched our area while also attending every single HPC meeting. Last March, a small group of neighbors that Diane touched on met with Mr. Baglioli of Benderson Development in the hopes of discussing alternative options to tearing down 22 Chateau, as well as altering the size of the proposed apartment complex on Main Street, in what I can only assume was a poor attempt to intimidate us. When neighbors asked Mr. Baglioli to maintain the property at 22 Chateau, instead of tearing it down, Mr. Baglioli stated if Benderson were forced by the town to keep the home, you landmarked it, then they would simply gut the interior and store garbage totes for the apartment complex within the home or turn it into a tool shed. That statement then prompted us neighbors to work harder, fight stronger, organize more, and make sure what Mr. Baglioli said did not become a reality. In a recent letter to the town board, Mr. Baglioli stated that allowing someone who doesn't own a property to submit a landmark application would be setting a bad precedent for the town. But I spoke with Megan Britton, the former Amherst HPC chair of 9 years, and she pointed me to several examples where the property owner did not submit their own landmark application and opposed the landmark designation. In July 2013, neighbors submitted an application for Sacred Heart Academy. The school and many alumni showed up and opposed. But in September 2013, the town board approved to landmark it. In April 2016, the HPC submitted an application for the Stone House at Park School, which Sam mentioned. The school was opposed, but in September 2016, the town board approved to landmark it. In December of 2018, the HPC submitted an application for the Country Club of Buffalo. The club was opposed, but in April 2019, the town board voted to landmark it. I'd like to propose a solution to Benderson's problem. I'd like to offer to buy 22 Chateau, the property, for the assessed value of $135,000. Our neighbors can afford that. I see it as a good solution to our problem. Thank you.
Good evening, Board and Supervisor Culpa. My name is Paul Sircone. I've resided at 52 Chateau since 1986. And if you could just bring up the picture that was here earlier, previous to this, if it's possible. I want to just point out something that goes to the intent of the developer. Besides the, I would want to make a point that goes to the intent of the developer who's under his stewardship, besides the garage coming down, that tree adjacent to the driveway, that has also been cut down. Not that it matters, but I think it goes to the intent to show what the developer has in mind for the building. The tree was gone over a year ago. Not that it matters, but was under his stewardship, and he owns the property. But once again, I believe it goes to the intent of what he has in mind for the continuation of the development and the right to build, which is what he goes by, not just Benderson Development. So the tree was gone previous to the garage, and I think, once again, it just shows the intent that they have for the property.
Shelley Schratz, I wasn't going to say anything, but you know, it was a year ago before the election. And I want to thank this group of people that live over on Chateau Terrace, because they reminded me when I came here and listened to all these meetings just how important our neighborhoods are. The other thing that I want to bring up, everything they say, you're going to do a resolution about transparency. The thing that's missing from this board for whatever reason, which never did before, you know it, Franny, communication. There's no reason why you can't address the people. You were elected by the people, address them. Instead of giving them dirty looks, I know, Brian, but it's the truth. This is why the people are disgusted, okay? They're hurt, all right? But it's real. It's absolutely real. But I will say this. I was on the board. I know how developers work. I know how it all works. And I know how people don't like you when you don't vote the way they want you to. But to do your job right, you have to look at every single side of it. I'm talking, I have my 3 minutes. You have to look at every single side of it. And then you come up with the right for the entire town, but for the people that live there. What you've put them through, okay? It has woken a sleeping giant, and thank you for that, because our town is all that matters to us. Thank you all. You need to vote for this, because
Shelley,
it's the right thing to do.
Everybody keeps talking to us like this board's locked in to vote against this.
It's because you never talk to anybody. I've been coming here for a year. I can't get over
on the
it.
agenda.
Well, so what? But you still don't respond.
We can keep going with the public hearing. Everybody
Okay,
keeps
so-
coming forward and telling us, oh, you're not going to vote for it.
Okay, so that means you're going to vote for it. Thank you, Jesus. They're going to vote for it. Is that what you're telling me?
Coming in. Shelley, need to sit down.
Shelley, I'm going to say something. I'm getting tired of hearing about God. There are different religions. You cannot, if you want to talk about God in general, that's one thing. But don't say what God is okay.
Everybody stop. I'm going to.
It's okay.
Shelley.
I'll sit down. I'll sit down.
Stop.
I'll
Everybody,
sit down.
we're in a public hearing about a property. Enough! We're in a public hearing. Irregardless. We're okay. Wait.
Tired of the anti-Semitism I face in this town.
I'm going to motion to take a 5-minute recess. Somebody second.
Second.
All right. I would ask everybody to, we are going to, going to, so we're still in a public hearing on the landmark designation for 22 Chateau Terrace. Going to continue with that.
Good evening, town board members. My name is Don Smith, North Long. I like to, can't hear me? Can you hear me now? I like to congratulate the people for Chateau Terrace for the best presentation that I've ever seen at this town board for a neighborhood I've seen in the last 25 years. It is well thought out. It is professional. It is not confrontational. It's a great group, and I am looking forward to this group going forward to help the town in many ways in the future. So, everybody else, you can think what you want to think, but these are some of the best people I've ever seen. Thank you very much.
All right. Anybody else on 22 Chateau Terrace?
I just want to confirm about the electric. It's definitely off.
Can you please come forward?
Tom
Got it.
Weisbach,
Yeah, please, thank
48 Drawbridge. The electric is shut off. There's no meter at the electrical service, so they just have power to the house. That's it.
Is the line run still from the house to the pole?
Yeah.
Okay.
The last time I was there, yes, it was.
So the meter's not currently on the
Meter's
house.
pulled out.
Thank you.
That's all I can tell you.
Okay. Understood. Anybody else on 22 Chateau Terrace? Relax.
Keith Bailey, Hopkins Road, Gettsville. Could we put that picture back up that's of the house that was used just a moment ago? I'm sorry. I've got a big voice and I try not to use
Go
it.
ahead.
What is being done to make sure and to assure the neighborhood that nothing else is going to happen to this property? Because if you find a company such as Benderson a small amount for removing the garage, what prohibits them from then having an accident at the home? Also, Benderson has allowed the interior of the home to degrade, and if my home was to degrade and I didn't upkeep it, the town of Amherst would be after me to say, you're not maintaining your property. The interior of that house over the last, I believe, 3 years has really gone downhill. Now they've removed the electric service, and I doubt they went in and winterized it or drained any of the water out, so in hopes of further damage to the interior so they can say it's not worth saving. What is the assurance to the people that this home suffers no more damage? And what is the assurance to the people that if this board does vote to put this on the historic register, that Benderson is then made to put this back together in the condition it was in when they purchased it 3 years ago?
Okay.
Make it whole again. Now, one last thing. You asked us to be very professional in how we talk and how we address the board, and I feel that a lot of the people that have come to this meeting have done that. I'd ask for some reciprocation. I pointed out in my last statement 2 weeks ago about eye contact and about listening to the people. And I would like to see that from every representative on this board, that you pay attention and you don't doodle or whatever you're doing, okay? I know you need to take, I can understand taking some quick notes. I got it. I understand that. But when you're in a meeting with people, look them in the eye, listen to what they're saying, and then respond back in a respectful, cordial manner. And if you don't agree with something they're saying, try to keep that to yourself as much as possible. Thank you.
With re- with regards to the property, so when the garage came down, I did very verbally at a work session prior to the last public hearing express my outrage over the demolition of the garage. Expressed it that evening. Since then, the property's been looked after by police and code enforcement because I made it very clear that we weren't going to let anything else happen to the house. The electric box coming off is news to me. Moving forward, the only thing we can do is protect it the same way, right? With law enforcement and code enforcement. We can, the building's been nominated. Once we landmark it, assuming that everything moves forward, then Benderson will need to go to Historic Preservation Commission for anything else on that property. And that means that Historic Preservation can set terms. Oftentimes, that does not include the interior of a house. The landmark status is the shell package of the house. And it's to the date that the Historic Preservation Commission sets as a period of significance. All those things are true. They're set in our law that enables Historic Preservation Commission. It's enforceable in front of a judge, and it's enforceable all the way through an appeal at the state Supreme Court. We use SHPO standards to set our Historic Preservation Commission guidelines and bylaws. So, I take a little bit of exception to people just assuming the board was voting no. We opened the public hearing to allow everybody to be heard. We didn't close the public hearing last time, even though I thought I knew which way the board was going to go anyways, because we said, no, we want people to be able to answer and address the Benderson questions, which you've done. But there's, a lot of accusation that gets postured in a run-up to something, and this board hasn't wavered about the asset value of the house. We've never discredited our HPC. In fact, as far as I know, since I've been on the board, we've never voted against an HPC nomination. So, I understand that there's some dilemma in this room with people who feel one way or another about the board, but I'm asking you don't conflate it with the way that this board approaches this project or will approach this house moving forward. Those are different issues altogether. I think the property has been well established. So we can continue to carry on with the public hearing. If there's anybody who has anything different or anything else they would like to add to this, or we can close the public hearing and I can call for a vote. Sure. Just restate your name and address, please.
Lisa Dirtle, 92 Chateau Terrace. My question is, I remember poring over the 86-page project file, and I know for a fact I read somewhere I could find it, but not immediately. I found a document that said that Benderson had to protect the house before any demolition happened. And I'd like to know how, obviously whatever we're doing to protect it isn't working. What does that mean? Does that mean putting a fence up, or putting a barrier up? Can the town make them do that?
So assuming that they'll have a permit for a construction fence, Historic Preservation as a committee can say, here's how we would like to handle the property, including the house, and how we want you to protect it. Again, it puts a trust back in a very qualified Historic Preservation Commission, which is made up of people who have backgrounds in this type of thing. So we will leave it to them ultimately, and to the building department to ensure the house is protected. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. Thanks for the answer.
Laura Drusbeck, 70 Fruhoff. I have a quick question. I understand that what was submitted in the paperwork and by the HPC was for the entire property, but I keep hearing you say the word house. So I'm questioning if you guys are voting on just the house or the entire property.
The house isn't a nomination in front of us, only the
Not 80 by 80?
the whole, so the designation is for the property at 22 Chateau.
Okay.
The house is, when we say the house, I'm talking about protecting
entire
the
property.
structure. Right, but yes, I think the question on that question was specifically how do you protect the structure against degradation, but the whole property is what's nominated.
Right, that's what I'm clarifying, because you keep saying we're going to vote on the house, and I just want to make sure that it's the
Okay, I'm
property.
sorry.
Yeah,
The property at 22 Chateau Terrace is what's in front of us tonight.
okay, perfect, thank you.
Anybody have any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'm going to motion to accept the designation of property at 22 Chateau Terrace as a local historic landmark.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. In hindsight, we could have saved everybody an hour. Next, I'm going to motion to open the public hearing for Resolution 116, local law to enhance transparency and participation in the town of Amherst budget process.
Good evening, Town Board. Marty Paloe, Amherst Town Attorney. The local law that's in front of you is entitled Transparency in the Budget Process, and the purpose is to enhance transparency, public understanding, and participation in the town's annual budget process, and this shall be achieved by the creation and distribution of a citizen's budget overview and providing opportunities for public involvement in the budget process. Defined terms in the local law are the Citizens Budget Overview, which I'll refer to as CBO, and that's a document summarizing the key components of the annual town budget in a format easily understandable to the general public. Property tax levy refers to the total amount of property tax revenue to be raised through rates set by this town board. And the average property owner refers to a hypothetical residential property whose property value is the median of all taxable properties within the town. The requirements for the CBO are that the Finance Department prepare and distribute a CBO and ensure its accuracy. The CBO will include but won't be limited to an overview of the proposed budget, major revenue sources, and expenditure areas. A detailed account of any proposed changes to the tax levy, including the reason for such changes. An estimate of the impact of the proposed property tax levy changes on the average property owner. Again, that's residential property owner. Information on how citizens can participate in the budget process, including the dates, times, and locations of public hearings, as well as other means of submitting input or feedback. The CBO is to be not longer than 2 pages and presented in a clear, easy, readable format using plain language and visible aids where beneficial. The CBO will be made publicly available at the same time as the proposed annual budget and be distributed through various means, including publication on the town's website and posted in Amherst facilities. The town board, under this proposed local law, would hold at least three public hearings, allowing for citizens to provide input directly. At least one of those public hearings shall be held at the Amherst Senior Center or at such other location and time convenient for older adults. Citizens will have the opportunity to submit written comments up to 20 days after the initial budget submission. All public input received by the board shall be considered before finalizing the budget. Finally, with regard to enforcement, non-compliance with this local law shall be enforced by the town board with potential measures including a directive to comply. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Okay, questions from this board first. I know we've been looking at this for some time. If not, I'm going to open it up directly to questions from the audience or comments from the audience. I'm going to ask you to just state your name and address for the record.
Christina Coyle Lenz, 64 East Chateau Terrace. Supervisor Culpa, board members Marinucci, Berger, and Lavin. There's been a significant reference in recent weeks to concepts of inclusion within the town of Amherst. Inclusion was described by Schultz in 1958, referenced in Norhaus 2021 as a, quote, basic human need that people experience in their interpersonal relationships. What does this mean to us in Amherst, New York? The presence of inclusion is best assessed by examining the relationship between uniqueness and belongingness, also Norhaus 2021. Inclusion is present when stakeholders feel that they belong and that they are valued for their unique attitudes, beliefs, values, and backgrounds. I'm here to address inclusion of residents in the town budget process in the context of Resolution 2024-116, originally introduced as Resolution 2023-1011. The resolution, in my opinion, does not really provide a process to truly engage resident voices. Resolution 2024-116 falls short in several ways. Number one, Mr. Culpa indicated to WIVB, published on December 5th, 2023, and I quote, "What we are memorializing is exactly what we do now. It will be released, there will be 3 public hearings talking about it, and we are going to put out a very plain speak summary." I have the WIVB link here. So my question is, what happened during the 2023 budget season? Resolution 2023-116 proposes transparency and participation, yet it does not suggest required timelines for action and dissemination of information to ensure proactive communication of the town's financial status. If this resolution is not amended to include specific and measurable timelines, the impact is null and can create a lack of inclusion, as was experienced in 2023. Why is there not a requirement for interim financial reports to advise residents at specified intervals of the financial health of the town? The public deserves reports on how their town is spending residents' money. This includes all residents. Renters fund taxes through their rental payments to landowners. Everyone belongs in this conversation. The resolution needs to activate an inclusive committee of residents that provides a voice to us, the residents, so that our interests are represented in the town's financial decisions. Committee membership must be open to all residents, and processes one must follow for committee consideration and selection criteria must be clearly articulated. Remember, inclusion and transparency. Number 5, the advisory board needs to be bipartisan with fully transparent appointment processes. There are a significant number of unaffiliated voters in Amherst. They belong at the table too, in the spirit of inclusion and transparency. Resolution 2024-116 suggests the need to simplify the finances. This is fine, yet the resolution must provide for easy access to all the town's financial matters in their entirety. Some people actually have the capability, interest, and understanding to read the full financial statements. For those skilled in financial analysis, they need to be free to easily browse the unabridged documents. Again, in the spirit of inclusion and transparency. The bipartisan advisory board must have authority that provides checks and balances to the town board. Mr. Lavin, you proposed 2024-116, and I can't help ask the question, why did you wait till after the 2023 election to introduce this resolution? I'm sorry. You've been on the board since 2018. How many times have we overridden the tax cap since 2018? And in addition to that, how much have the taxes gone up since 2018? This is curious to me that it took 5 years for you to see the need for a resolution to establish standards that should have been followed to deliver both inclusion and transparency. Please vote against this resolution and make the needed amendments.
Frank Belliati, 61 Old Lime. I remember sitting in the audience here when it was Supervisor Mohan. Anyways, the attorney got up at some point and he said, "It's now midnight and we can't go any further." If it's November 20th, I just asked the attorney. And the person who brings that to the board to vote is the supervisor. And all this other stuff, God help us, you know, we need people working on that. So this other process, I hope it works. I hope it's there. I hope it gets better. Ultimately, the man or woman stands in front of the board and says, here's the budget. And then the board votes on it. So we certainly kept it a secret. I don't know what you think of finances in a government entity, but it's not like General Motors that can put out financial statements quarterly. You got a handful of people doing this, you know, taking care of some of this stuff. And the accounting's a little strange anyways. Just don't forget that. This is all good. You want to attack people on they didn't show up for this meeting or that meeting, or talk about a finance director or something else. The searchlight's always going to be on which is where it should be. Just a comment.
My name is Don Smith, North Lawn. I'm here to address this particular proposed local law. I'm going to have to read this. This local law is only a promise to do good next year. It may be a legitimate aspiration to do better. But until we see the actual work product for 2025 and the process to get it, we will remain skeptical of the town board's sincerity. As the elected government body of Amherst, the town board holds a large structural power inequity over the public. We all know this. It is the town board's responsibility to exercise this power inequity with integrity, openness, honesty, and be accountable to the public. Since the town board is responsible for enforcing any local law it creates, believing the town board will voluntarily police itself to fully comply with all its provisions would be especially foolish and remarkably naive. My suggestion is to generate a prototype of the core item to see whatever this item is, with data from the 2024 budget to show what the future 2025 budget would look like, i.e. generate a prototype based on 2024. This one action could go a long way to increase the credibility of the town board. But I have to address something I heard the last meeting. It was said that this resolution was filed incorrectly and needed to be republished. This version of the local law is a highly diminished version of the original. It appears to be heavily reduced in scope and intent, where 3 highly significant deletions were made that could reduce budget information, discount public participation, and make enforcement highly unlikely. Let's start with the clumsy way this local law was changed. Normally, when the text is deleted by an edit, it remains in the new document as a strike-through to indicate that this text was deleted. However, this text is just missing, gone, as if it never existed, and with no strike-through indication of a deletion. The public never gets to see what was deleted. So I'm going to tell you. Section 2 definitions. The public participation opportunities refers to the schedule, events, forums, or processes designed to solicit and consider public input of the annual budget. This definition was entirely removed. Section 3, requirements for the citizens' budget overview. Number 4, information about major capital expenditures, including project descriptions, costs, funding, sources, and timeline. This item was removed. Where there was 5, now there's 4 items. And finally, on Section 6, enforcement, where it says non-compliance with the local law shall be addressed by the town board with potential measures including formal censure or directed to comply. At least only the former censure was removed. Seems to me the local law supposedly intended to enhance transparency and participation in the town of Amherst budget process was modified non-transparently. That the public is not aware of these deletions. Exactly what happened was pasted back in as a new document where everything was underlined, saying it was all new, and it wasn't. It was the exact same thing with these things removed. So you didn't do it the right way. It was not transparent to the public. You missed your objective. Thank you.
Judy Ferraro, Donnelly Boulevard. This sudden move to convince the public of your transparency is transparently silly. You should not need a resolution to simply do your job. The people running this town have not and could not function with transparency. Will this resolution resolve that problem? Thank you.
Chris Strongoski, Youngs Road. I think I've got a solution to your local law. Why don't we have the budget set 2 weeks before any November election? Can't ask for any more transparency than that. The residents of this town will know 2 weeks before any election in November what their taxes are either going up, staying the same, or they're not going down. 2 weeks before, that's all. There's your transparency. Not that it, thank you.
Jane Cox, Harlem Road. I was just going to come up and make some suggestions for possible changes. First of all, I'm concerned that the citizens' budget overview document, quote, shall not exceed 2 pages. When you add in item 4 of the local law, all the information about the process, the dates of hearings, and the other information, I believe that that section should be done separately as a cover sheet and not counted as a page in the report, which is supposed to be telling people about the budget and how it affects them. My second suggestion or concern is that I looked at the current budget calendar for the town board for the budget process. Right now, the tentative budget is to be submitted by October 1st or no later than October 5th. Then there will be a town board meeting on October 15 for changes to the budget. There is only one public hearing currently scheduled, and that is to be on October 28th. There are no other town board meetings planned until after the election of November the 5th. I believe the public would like the 3 proposed public hearings about the budget to be held before the November 5th election. And the budget is then scheduled to be adopted November 12th. So I don't know how you're going to do that. I'm also concerned about another section, which is the local law's 20-day period to receive written comments. That period of time from October 1st would close on October 21st, which would be a week before the one currently scheduled public hearing of the 28th. So, to summarize, I'm suggesting the 3 public hearings be held before November 5th. I think having one at the senior center is a great idea. So maybe you could just add another one in there in October for another hearing at another town board meeting or perhaps another location. but keeping in mind that when you go off-site from this building, those meetings are not recorded. So if you want the information to be available on a YouTube video, you need to be in this room. A longer period for written comments should be the whole month of October. And a 2-page document with all the budget details with a separate cover sheet for the instructions of how to proceed would be appreciated. Thank you.
Matt Plunkett, North Hill Drive. Excuse me. I want to go back to something Mr. Drangoski said a couple of minutes ago. It was a long-standing policy of this town board to adopt the budget prior to the November election, and that goes back probably 25 or 30 years. I think it was Dan Ward was the one who finally got the board to agree to do that. And that was done year after year after year after year after year until suddenly it magically disappeared. And now the meetings are called after the last town special meetings are called after the last town board meeting before the budget has to be enacted, and the budget is enacted at the last possible minute. I don't know why that policy changed. It wasn't etched in stone. It wasn't written anywhere. It's just what the board always did. And they voted that way for years and years and years, and the budget was out there. People saw it, and people had to live with it when they went to the polls on election day if they were up for re-election. That's all changed now, and I think that's a damn shame.
You know, we really had no explanation. Frank Belliati. Old Lyme. Those districts, you know, the sewer and the water and the light and all those other ones get taken care of earlier than that. By the time you know, the final budget's going to have the general fund in it. All I think the constituents want to know is, when you found out that 2% wasn't doable, there should have been an alarm go off, and that's when you should have had meetings in enough time to have meetings and bring them back in and say, look, we're not going to do Westwood this year. We're not going to do this this year. We're going to do that here, and we're going to do it someplace else to get it back under control. But to let the thing go and all of a sudden it's 11%, and now we're going to nitpick here and nitpick there and someplace else. You got to get things done in plenty of time and have it before the election, absolutely. 11% was more than we could handle.
Tom Weisbeck, 48 Drawbridge. I just want to just state a fact that in the last town and county taxes, our general tax went up. Our general tax, town tax went up 38.7%. That's what it said on my tax bill, 38.7. That was an increase from the previous year then. Is that correct?
It's the levies based on a composite of all of the town funds. So there were funds that decreased.
Well, of course, but our the street lighting district only went up, let's see, 2.8 versus 38 for the town. I mean, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, no kidding.
So.
I'll respond to a few of the comments. With regard to the timing, the town of Amherst follows New York State town law as far as its budget process. So the New York State legislature set the time for the adoption of the budget to be November 20th. That's New York State legislature's purview, and you're welcome to take that up with New York State. Excuse me. Budget process timelines are set by New York State legislature in the New York town law. So any reference to timing as far as when things are released and when they must be approved by are set by the New York State legislature and applicable to all towns in the state of New York. With regard to the the quote diminished local law. It was I that pulled the local law from the last agenda because I had found some significant legal deficiencies in it. One of which was the term censure. The town of Amherst doesn't have a process for censuring its employees. It must follow the civil service law and applicable CBAs, collective bargaining agreements. So that's why that was pulled. With regard to the deletion and strike through, this is a brand new law. It creates a new article in the code, so everything is underlined. Like I said, that last local law was rescinded because I needed to perform a legal review of it. That's why you don't see any strike through. As far as removal of the capital expenditures, I recommended that be removed because the capital improvement program is a separate resolution that's adopted by this board. It is also made publicly available, and to add the capital improvement program to the CBO would have made it 15 pages long, perhaps. Let me see. With regard to Ms. Cox's comment on the public hearings, once this local law is adopted, assuming it's adopted by this board, the board then will have to, by vote on a resolution, set those additional public hearing dates. The 20-day period, that is done in a way to account for a deadline. We talked about timelines, so a deadline for receiving comments. And my final comment is, well, I have two more. One was that this in some way replaces the budget or makes the budget unavailable to the public. The budget will still be released. It will be published on Track Us. It will be there for those that would like to get down into the nitty-gritty. And finally, this isn't a law for just 1 year. It amends our town code. It will be law until it's amended, if it was amended. Like any local law may be amended. Thank you.
Thanks, Marty. Any further? No? Yes? No? I'm going to motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're going to motion to set a decision date for this to our next town board meeting.
March 20.
No.
No. Wait.
March 11th, 2024. There's a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item on our agenda this evening is public expression. I'm going to ask our town attorney to please read the rules for public expression at this time.
Excuse me. Generally, with regard to decorum must be maintained throughout tonight's meeting. Pursuant to the rules of order, speakers shall address the board as a whole and refrain from partisan political commentary, personal, impertinent, slanderous, or profane remarks, catcalls, bells, noisemakers, and other outbursts that disrupts the order of the meeting. Excuse me. Ma'am? I'm reading the rules of order about disruptions. I have the microphone, so I was just finishing reading this. May I?
Please go ahead.
Any person who makes such remarks or otherwise disrupts the meeting with loud outbursts, shouting, threats, or other disruptive behavior shall, at the discretion of the supervisor, or after a motion and majority consensus of the board, be ruled out of order. With regard to public expression, there are two opportunities for public expression: for you to address the board with comments on topics not covered within the public hearing scheduled for tonight. Per the rules of order, the purpose of public expression is to allow opportunity for the public to formally communicate with the board on any matter involving Amherst. This is not designated to be a conversation with the board, but an opportunity for the public to express their opinion on issues that the board will cover during that meeting, or to bring to attention an issue involving Amherst. Speakers may comment for up to 3 minutes. The town clerk will ring the bell once you have 30 seconds remaining, and twice when your time is finished. There's a sign-up sheet at the podium for you to indicate your interest in speaking. Once those have been exhausted, the supervisor will ask if there are additional speakers who would like to comment. Again, a reminder that decorum must be maintained. All remarks shall be addressed to the board as a whole and not any single member thereof. In the event that speaker's inquiry is urgent or their comment is inaccurate, the supervisor or town board member may respond for 1 minute after the close of public expression. Thank you for your adherence to these rules of order.
All right, a motion to open public expression. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
First on the list is Frank Belliati.
Frank Belliati, I'm at 61 Old Lime. I hate to call it the Westwood project, but that's where it is until something gets done. It reminds me of a platypus. There's so many pieces that don't fit together, and they just keep sitting out there as if we're going to accomplish all those. I'm worried that North Forest Road will become a parking lot. I have no idea. Since that's the only entrance to Westwood now, I can't imagine in the future how all that stuff's solved. There's environmental problems there that won't go away. Somewhere in the budget, there was a $10 million demolition. And if that's the mall, then somebody's got an answer for me. The mall, the way it stands with all those little stores that are now vacant, looks like it would be a good place for an educational institution. They look like classrooms. They're in a general area. Tearing down a whole place, I understand people have problems. Churches have problems. You can give away the church because they can't do anything else with it. Did the Bob Zepper go up? One of the problems that was raised that we can't fit all the people in. There's a thing called Zoom. Now, I'm 80 years old, so if I can figure out what Zoom is, you guys ought to figure it. Is that you could put people somewhere else and have them, back in over the instruments here. The senior center is able to do it with teachers teaching from all kinds of different places. I didn't mean to look at any member when I said that. The LED was, you want to fool with those street lights. I think the regulated facility that is National Grid does a better job of it. If somebody was doing the cost-benefit analysis, and that's what ought to appear before anything's done around here. Somewhere between highway and law and controller, you ought to be able to put those together for almost anything. Some people are worried about consultants who show up who are going to do something for us. They start out as consultants, and the next thing you know, they're on the payroll, and they're on for an amount of money that doesn't fit in our civil service guidelines anywhere. I think there's a number of people in the last 10 or 20 years that have been added to the payroll here that we ought to be able to know how many more there are and who those people are. Recently, somebody was brought in who was going to do projects. They ended up in the law department. I think we got enough projects. The law department needs help, they ought to get a lawyer. One other thing is that if you're going to have all these expenditures, the thing you ought to take a look at is look inside yourself. An internal audit for somebody taking a look at all those cash problems that you have. We've seen churches, we've seen nonprofits come up with problems. They even picked on the county clerk. Some things are missing. We ought to have some facility for doing that. There's a million ways to do it. You could have an outside CPA. Your controller's a CPA. Sometimes you need some other people working on it. I think looking at some of those costs, included with all those people. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Weisbeck.
Tom Weisbeck, 48 Drawbridge Court. I just want to remind you guys, you could have opted in, where they could have came in, the National Grid, Niagara Mohawk, could have came in, just changed one street light at a time instead of spending all that $33 million. plus about the budget, you said the last time we were here, you said there's going to be a tax cut about the street lighting. Is that correct?
Go ahead, continue. I'll
Well, I'm
answer
just
it.
asking, well, that's what my memory said, was what I remember. You said, yes, we're going to have it next year. So I just wanted to ask you, where are you going to put it? I mean, right now, the streetlights are $3.4 million. You know, are you going to put it in a general town tax? Move it from one portion of the budget to a different portion of the budget? So let's see, what else? Okay, so I want to express my opinion about how you feel about people. We're called racists and extremists throughout. You know, we had this gentleman, town of Amherst resident. He was involved politically. I don't know if you guys know, but I've been involved with politics most of my life. So I know a lot of politicians. He would stand up and against a very powerful Democrat throughout New York State, and he'd question him throughout, you know, big meetings. So during meetings, some people wouldn't even want to, you know, he didn't want to be part of this publicly on his side, but railed for him. Great job. So he became the town chairman of Democrats back in the 90s. Then he became the county commissioner of Board of Election. Then he stood up to the power. He questioned the people. He questioned the power. People are coming here to question you guys. You call this extremists, racists. Totally wrong. We're just expressing our right to express our opinions. So he was elected a state Supreme Court justice. I think you know him, right? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Keep going, Tom.
I'm just asking a question, and no one's shaking their heads. His name's Dennis Ward. You know who Dennis Ward is, right?
Tom, keep going.
So do you know who he's Michelle Ainello's husband? So, I mean, please, this man, he stood up against the most powerful people in New York State, and he asked questions. Calling those names are totally wrong. You should publicly express your sorrow to the people of Amherst. Just make it in a newspaper saying we're racist? Come on. Totally wrong. I mean, how could you even say that? How can you do that? Totally outrageous. Okay, I'm done with that. But public safety thing. I was here it's public safety. So I was here the other day for the.
Well up.
I know, one quick one. It's about your gas meter. You have no protection for your gas meter.
Okay,
That's your during I was here for the last meeting. Someone backed into the handicap. Someone could have a medical emergency there.
All right.
Could hit that meter.
Thanks, Tom.
Just take a look at it.
Okay. Okay. Bill Hennel. Is that, sorry.
The board, I'm Bill Hennel, 25-year Amherst resident. So we're kind of used to tax increases.
Sorry, go ahead. Can you just state your address again?
59 Bryanstone Court.
Thank you.
So I'm an Amherst resident, 25 years, so we're kind of used to tax increases. 2021, bill went up 3.25, 3.3, 2022, 2023, 3.16. So everybody's thinking, okay, that's how things are going to be. So I hear on the news late, we're going to get 11.4% tax increase, 3 times the cap. all right? Then I read it in the Buffalo News. First time I ever heard this. I know you have these things, but this is kind of like something way out of the ordinary, all right? So I get these mailers, right around the election, all these mailers, right? Why can't you, like, send one out? I know it's 50 cents for every household, and I bet you if you would have put 11.4 on there and said, this is what we're going to do, you know, you would have not all these people all up in arms because your transparency was terrible, all right? So I know you want to do all these nice things, all right? The police and highway vehicles need replacement, $33 million for the National Grid streetlights buyout, Westwood, $70.5 million, Boulevard Mall. Did we have to do these all in 1 year? I have a budget. If my kids say, these are like 4 big vacations, my kids, we want to go on vacation. I say, okay, we'll have one nice one and maybe a little basic one. I'm not going to go in debt for 4 vacations, you know? So, I called up the next day to, try and get a hold of you, Brian. The phones, I couldn't get through. The Amherst switchboard was just out of order or wasn't getting through. I finally got through and left a message. One of your assistants called me and said, well, we had these meetings, blah, blah. That don't make sense. When you're doing something so outrageous compared to what you're doing now, you got to be more upfront, all right? So just to finish it out, I know you had these expenses. What did you do to try and save some money? Did we cut any patronage jobs? Did you try and save any money? I didn't hear any about this, all right? Then I hear this year we're going to be doing the reassessment. So I'm going to get hit again, probably. So, it's just like one thing after another. The only thing I know is we got a pretty good economy, but our local government, I have to say, and this is just being kind, is struggling. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Allison Segraves.
Good evening, Allison Segraves, Amherstdale Road. I'm here again as a concerned citizen to ensure that our town operates with good governance. Everything we have heard tonight comes back to governance. By good governance, I mean fiscal discipline, transparency, and ethics. Let's start with fiscal discipline. Under the supervisor, we had 4 budgets exceed the cap in your tenure. 3 were approved, the last, as others have said, at an 11.4 increase. Further, I know you're going to add to this transparency law, but you already have numerous laws in the town code. For example, you are required to hold committee meetings for the Amherst Government Financial Advisory Board, whose role in the town code is to suggest improvements for the effectiveness of Amherst government financial activities. That is on the books today. When I spoke here February 5th, I pointed out that this committee had not met since July 2023. Coincidentally, they met the following week, February 13th. An agenda topic was clarification review of street light replacement project financials. So citizens watching at home, citizens in this room, I encourage you all to attend the next meeting of the Amherst Government Financial Advisory Board on March 14th at 7 o'clock. I believe it's in Northtown Center. It should be on the website to hear the discussion of the streetlight financials. And oh, by the way, on the website, there's only 1 person on this committee, according to the website. So if you need more members, I'm an economics major, have years in finance, I volunteer. Number 2, transparency. As per section 8.3 of the town code, the town established an open government citizens advisory committee to actually promote, and it says these words, transparency, public participation, and collaboration. This is in the town code. This is an established committee. I will tell you that this committee has not met since January 2022. Further, per the town code, Town departments must keep current records online for FOIL purposes. As of 2 o'clock today, only 8 of the 22 departments have current documents. For example, the supervisor's records, the supervisor's documents are dated 2020. Finally, I have raised the issue that long-form disclosures have not been properly filled out by some council members up here and committee members and staff. How do we know if you have conflicts of interest? Which brings me to number 3, ethics and integrity. When tonight's meeting agenda was released Thursday, it contained at least 2 concerning items, a resolution regarding the Amherst Central PUD. It turns out that the first order of business isn't to open a trail or make an ice ribbon, but rather draft a resolution authorizing this board to engage in a 30-year exclusive contract with Musical Fair as the sole operator of indoor theater for the next 30 years. And a non-disclosure agreement with Benderson, whom we've talked about, for the development of the Boulevard Mall. Does anyone think these actions are ethical, for the common good, and with clear understanding of the financial impact? By my analysis, fiscal discipline, transparency, and ethics need improvement. My strong recommendation to this board is to take us seriously, all of us. You are hearing from a wide range of voices. Take us seriously. Answer questions. Ask for help. And follow the town codes that you are required by statute to follow. That is good governance. We are in this together, and we want a thriving, well-run town.
Andrea Morganti. Just back here.
Good evening, members of the Amherst Town Board. My name is Andrea Morganti, and I reside at 253 Woodshire Court. I am here as a voice for the nonpartisan community group, and I am hoping that you can help educate myself and the residents of Amherst as to how our government works. I want to clarify that this is my understanding. At the February 5th board meeting, Resolution 2024-128 was passed to appoint people to the FOIL board. It appears that this resolution may have violated Amherst local law 4/2020 that allows the town board to appoint 1 person to the FOIL board versus the 2 people that you actually appointed. Doesn't the board have to follow our Freedom of Information law? The Town of Amherst board has appointed and reappointed the Records Access Officer to the FOIL board to hear and determine FOIL appeals. Doesn't this violate the New York State law, which states in part, the Records Access Officer shall not be the appeals officer? A FOIL advisory opinion from the New York State Committee on Open Government states in part, we know of no law that would prohibit the handling of an appeals by any particular person except the person designated as the Records Access Officer. Can our local law supersede New York State law? If not, will the Records Access Officer be removed from the FOIL board since they cannot handle an appeal? The New York State law also states in part, the person or body designated to hear appeals. Does our local law, as worded, conflict with the New York State law when we have both a FOIL appeals officer as a FOIL board? I cannot locate in our local law or codes that the FOIL board members are appointed for a 4-year term. Is the FOIL board subject to the New York State open meeting law, and if not, why? And I don't understand why the FOIL board has 20 days versus 10 days to respond to an appeal. Is this in compliance with New York State law? Why does our FOIL appeals officer review the responses to a FOIL request before it is issued? Would this pose a conflict of interest in determining an appeal? Where can I find the FOIL appeals procedures online? Supervisor Culpa, I'm not here to place blame. I just want to make sure that our town board is properly reviewing and following our town and board laws when approving resolutions. And wouldn't you agree that laws are in place to protect the town and its residents? And if this is correct, shouldn't our Freedom of Information law be redone? I know, Supervisor Culpa, you do not answer questions during the presentation, but I encourage you to educate the public tonight on such an important issue regarding the public's access to government records. And for your convenience, I have this for you with all my references noted. And if I may, Councilwoman Marinucci, here are approximately 1,500 signatures of petitions to override the tax levy. How many signatures on a petition does it take for the board to reverse their decision?
Judy Ferraro. Judy. Is Judy still here? There.
Let's see here. Judy Ferraro, Donnelly Boulevard. Amherst cannot continue funding multi-million-dollar sweetheart deals that requires excessively taxing residents to cover wrongdoing and financial malfeasance. The first Grand Culpa sweetheart deal was with UBMD during the height of COVID when people were preoccupied. Now it is Westwood and Culpa's Pud Park trying to push it through quickly to avoid being held accountable for cost, miscalculations, bypassed laws, and attempts to stifle the voice of the people. The very people who will be burdened and forced to live with these decisions and pay for it forever. Bonding is borrowing. It is repaid later with interest by us. This is not the time for outrageous, mindless ventures that no one can afford and no one wants or needs. Who really benefits? What are the short and long-term ramifications for all stakeholders? Have you even considered that, or in your eagerness to satisfy your paymasters, ignored? We cannot trust the happy talk and gaslighting from proven untrustworthy politicians who have now resorted to racist rhetoric and whining because they are no longer able to hijack and control the narrative. The people have awakened and are speaking out with truth and righteous concern. They will not be ignored. This latest installment of wrongdoing warrants a comprehensive investigation and a forensic audit now.
Good evening, Board. My name is Gina Gentry. I reside on Bissell Drive in Amherst. I'm here to speak about two issues where I feel like this board is once again unfit to continue in their roles on the board of Amherst. Specifically you, Brian Culpa. Thank you. Sorry, I hate these things. I thought this was a better mic. Okay. So first thing is your way to kind of cause dissension and to divide people. Number one, you're trying to divide political parties, Democrat versus Republican, but in all reality, you're uniting us even more. Number two is your division of race. It is despicable, it was disgusting, and it was absolutely low to go on the Buffalo News and state, using children, by the way, that we as Amherst residents don't want Westwood because children of color, we don't want children of color in our area. Well, I'm going to tell you something, Brian. We agree this is a serious issue about color, but it's not about black and white. It's about green, the color of money and greed. You, the board, are ripping hard-earned money out of the pockets of taxpayers and with all colors of this outrageous tax hike. This is an example of a sad and desperate politicians playing the race card to hide your fiscal mismanagement and massive tax increase. Sadly, most of the low and middle income, and you can laugh all you want. That disrespect goes to you too, Brian Culpa. Sorry, I'm getting angry now. Okay. Sadly, most low and middle income families will have to leave Amherst because they can't afford your crippling tax increase. You can run, but you can't hide from your incompetence and your mismanagement of funds that you've done. That's issue number one. Issue number two is your intimidation of residents and the stifling of our First Amendment rights that you swore to uphold when you took office. Number one, though, it's not just of all residents, it's specifically of women. A few years ago, my friend Sarah, which I couldn't believe this, and now I've experienced it myself, received a call from Brian Culpa when she tried to instill a rally for her kid to play hockey at the Northtown Center. And Brian Culpa, in her Facebook post that was just 2 days ago, it was a review, said that his tone, he pretty much came and called and said he was going to call the police on her. And then the second her husband got on the phone, his tone changed. Intimidation is not from a leader, it's from a dictator. And number two, I was part of those text messages. My name was in that text message from your $105,000 chief of staff telling me to stop coming and talking at meetings, to say that I was out of control. How dare you try to intimidate me? Number two, one of my friends, who you wouldn't know who she is in this crowd from anybody else, got a call, her husband's supervisor got a call from you telling her to not talk at the meetings or not cause disruption. Don't shake your head, she's here right now. So when you call an employer, that is out of line for you, number one, and it's all women. So once again, I am going to ask this board, especially you, Culpa, to resign your positions as of tonight. And we, as a board of constituents, all in favor, say aye.
Matt Plunkett, you're next, please.
Resign.
Matt Plunkett, North Hill Drive. I'm sorry. I was going to talk about reval because I know there's talk about doing a reval. I'm sorry. That better?
Yeah.
I was going to talk about reval, but a couple of things came up earlier on that I'm going to address instead. Mr. Supervisor Tom Wiesbeck was absolutely right when he said the general town tax went up 38.7%. You can song and dance all you want about the special district taxes going down a little bit and the levy going up only 11.4%. The general town tax went up 38.7%. Mr. Palawi, I think you were a little bit disingenuous in talking about the dates in the town law for passage of a budget. The November 20th date, as I understand it, is the drop dead date by which a town has to pass a budget. It doesn't say it can only be passed on the 20th. There's certainly nothing wrong with adopting a budget before the general election. This town did it for years, and there was never a legal challenge to the budget as being improperly enacted. As long as you follow the timeframes that are spelled out in the town board or in the town law, you can hold the vote on the budget anytime prior to November 20th. And to suggest otherwise, I think, is simply wrong. And then, the Chateau Terrace crowd that's here tonight, I was listening to all the comments and stuff that went on during the course of the public hearing, and one of the things that came out is there's kind of this undercurrent of suggestion that somehow or another something's going on between the board and this board and Benderson Development, only to find out tonight that we've got on the agenda a secret agreement between Benderson Development and the town of Amherst with respect to the development of Boulevard Mall. How can you have a secret agreement like that? That is shocking, absolutely shocking.
Okay, Mike Kozlowski.
Hi, Mike Kozlowski, Fruhoff Ave. I want to ask if there's anything that can be done from this board, specifically in relation to the building that I mentioned earlier, 4560 Main Street. Now, my understanding is that any building that is to be demolished as part of this project needs approval from the HPC, and that has not happened, and yet some permits have been issued. It is also my understanding that there have been permits issued for 4564 and 4548, but not 4560. I might be wrong. I don't know if there's anything that can be done to stop this. It seems like it's pretty clear cut that there's some rules not being followed, and I would appreciate anything that can be done by this town board or perhaps by the liaison to the HPC to help out and interject and save this structure. Thank you.
Bill Blake.
Bill Blake, 147 Fairlawn. I got to tell you, what I saw earlier this evening was shameful, absolutely shameful. What occurred, and I'm speaking directly to you. I could not believe my ears when I heard what you said. So yeah, you probably shouldn't say anything. What I'd like to talk about a little bit this evening are the municipal bonds that the town has issued over the years to support the spending. What I'm about to read to you is based on the disclosure documents that the town provided to the markets when you went to take out the $65 million worth of bonds. And it goes back to 2018. The total bond debt that we had in 2018 was $111,900,122. In 2020, it went up to $123,480,892. And in 2022, it stood at $161,208 or $161,208,305. On November 2nd, 2023, the town issued 25 new municipal bonds, totaling $64,851,900. Most of the coupon rates on those bonds were 5%, and some maturity dates extend out until October 15th, 2048. This brings our, it's not right? I heard somebody doing that. This brings our approximate bond debt to $226 million. So Brian, since you've been in office, you've raised that by $114 million worth of debt that we're going to be paying off for years to come. What was the cost to issue these bonds for the rating services, for the attorneys? Just the bonds. Anybody know? It's a 1%. So it was $640,000 in administrative costs. And the debt service is going to be $25,813,000. So how much is too much? Where does it end? I'm going to read a letter from a woman that I got yesterday, a letter from her. She's a senior citizen. She says, I'm one of many seniors who have lived in Amherst for many years. As a senior citizen, this tax increase has impacted my life and has pushed me to the point of asking for food aid. My fixed income will not sustain these tax increases. Several in my community are talking about moving. What I've read in the newspapers about the Westwood Country Club property is not something our community needs, and at this point, when costs are skyrocketing, we do not need this. What are they thinking? I pray that those people who are making these decisions will understand the impact it's having on so many of us. Thank you. So you really need to hear the voices of the people, Brian, because some of this stuff is discretionary, and you don't have to do it all at once.
Karen Howard.
Hi. Good evening, Brian, Jackie, Sean, Angela. My name is Karen Howard, and I live at 194 Roycroft Boulevard in Snyder. I've lived in the town of Amherst since 1986, so it's a long time. I'm addressing you this evening not to complain, but to voice my opinion, as I feel it's my responsibility as a citizen of Amherst to do so. And likewise, I feel it's your responsibility to listen to the constituents that you all represent, not just hear us, but to listen to us and consider our perspectives. First of all, I want to say that I'm excited at the prospects of a new large park in Amherst. However, I question whether it needs to be filled with so much of the development that's currently proposed within the park. At the last meeting, I asked if you had considered migrating the town archives to an electronic system so that you wouldn't need to relocate the Buffalo Niagara Heritage Village historic buildings and animals to the new park. You had previously told us that you plan to move them to allow for storage of town archives at a building at the current BNHV site. Subsequent to the meeting, I emailed you several firms that do this for many organizations. So my question is this something that you may consider? My second point this evening is regarding the new Theater for Musical Fair. I happen to be a theater lover. I attend various community theater productions regularly, pretty much weekly. How exciting for Musical Fair to have a new home and a brand new state-of-the-art theater facility. However, while I appreciate that the town of Amherst supports various arts and cultural activities, it seems to me to be excessive to build a new facility for one organization and then provide it to them practically for free for 30 years. So my question is, why doesn't a developer build the new theater and lease it to Musical Fair, with Amherst contributing toward it instead of entirely providing it to them? So I'm here this evening, as I have been to the last several meetings, because I'm interested in our wonderful community and the decisions that are being made with our tax dollars. I'm not politically motivated, and I'm not racist. I'm merely interested and want to share my opinions. So I hope that you can provide some answers to these questions. And as always, I thank you for your time and attention.
You can pay Dave Howard.
Are we going to
everything
get?
at the end?
Thank you.
Hello, Dave Howard, 194 Roycroft Boulevard. I'd like to address the board again on the town park. I understand we hired a golf architect to take a look at the Audubon 18 and the par 3. I'm wondering if it might be a good idea to have him look at the Westwood property and tell us what really is the best place for the golf course. And depending on what he says, we build the park in the opposite property. I mean, he's an expert, so let's take a look at both properties, see what's best for Amherst, and build the park in the other property. That's one. The design of the town park I was looking at, and I mean, I like some of the things, but I'm concerned with the skating ribbon. I mean, I know it's exciting and all that, but with the weather we're having, and I'm talking weather going forward, and it's not going to be refrigerated, is it really worth putting a ribbon in when, I mean, how many days this year could we have used it? 4, 6, 10, and not in a row. It'd be 2 days here, 2 days there. I mean, maybe we should take a look at Rotary Park downtown, because I know that's not refrigerated, and see how much they use their ice rink this year. I just think, I mean, when we used to go skiing in the 70s and 80s at Kissing Bridge, that whole place was open. They barely got forced runs open this year, and they're struggling. So I just don't see an unrefrigerated ribbon ice rink is really worth putting the money in. I know there's a grant for it, but maybe we can use that grant somewhere else. Also, the exercise equipment. I go to parks all over the area, and I don't see anybody using any of the exercise equipment anywhere. I know it's nice, it looks good. If you want to look at one, there's one in Niagara Falls off Whitmere Road. The stuff's beautiful, powder coated. There ain't nobody using it. So I just think some of the stuff we might want to just maybe put on the back burner. And finally, the LED lights. I do like the idea of the LED lights. And I think most people do. What the problem is how it's being paid for. From what I can understand, there was 3 options. There was the New York State Power Authority had an option that you didn't have to take a loan out. They provided a loan. I don't know what the percentage is. I don't know anything about that. Niagara Grin also had a process, and then you could do it ourselves. It seems we chose ourselves. But it would be nice to see, I'm sure you looked at the other ones, why do we choose to do a bond ourselves versus using those other 2? It'd be nice to be able to see those numbers. And maybe you pick the best, I don't know. It's impossible to find out. Thank you.
Chris Strongoski, Youngs Road. The last town board meeting, I called out the supervisor for his comment that he made during the work session that day, that it was a little bit contrived, the contamination at Westwood. The following day, I received a phone call asking to meet with some individuals that they had documentation of the situation at Westwood. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the report, CS Companies, which Mensch commissioned, and this is the letter to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, Michael Heaton, dated October 2nd, 2017. And it was regarding pre-remedial investigation sampling report, Westwood Golf Course, Amherst, New York. In 2015 and 2016, 2 pilot studies were conducted on a 10-acre portion of the site. The results of the pilot studies were discussed with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, Mensch, and CNS on March 22nd, 2017. It was agreed during the meeting that further assessment of the entire golf course would be necessary to determine if metal contaminants observed in the area of the initial pilot studies will also be encountered throughout other portions of the site. The findings from the 2015 and 2016 pilot studies confirmed that the tee boxes and greens are significantly impacted by heavy metal contamination, and this contamination includes concentrations of arsenic and mercury above the soil cleanup objectives. That's the standard New York State sets. The metals at concentrations above the soil cleanup objectives in at least one sample included arsenic, cadmium, chromium, copper, cyanide, lead, manganese, mercury, selenium, silver, and zinc. So in 2017, the state ordered Mensch to go ahead and do a broad testing of the entire property. Even though it was somewhat very limited, it was a start in the direction. And their recommendation was, based on the findings of 2015, 2016, and 2017 pilot studies, the approach to the remedial investigation for the remainder of the site should include greens, tee boxes, and fairways. And it gave out the frequency they wanted. Also the rough. It has been found, and I've got the figures here, and this will go online shortly. That entire property is contaminated. Even the rough, even the forest area of the property has been contaminated. And he says it's not. That's a blatant lie.
Okay.
So he's gonna, his P-order, they're gonna piecemeal the ninth green, the ninth fairway. Amazing. This study says that the greens are contaminated, but ironically, only one green, number 9, is not contaminated. Now, how can every other green be contaminated and number 9's not? The fairways are contaminated in the number 9, and so is the rough.
Well, thanks,
What are you going
Chris.
to do to protect the community? You said you wouldn't put the community.
Chris, we continue to check every step of the way. Thank you. Jerry DeCosmo, you're next.
There you go, folks.
Good evening. My name is Jerry DeCosmo. I live on Meyer Road. These comments are relative to my concerns about the taxes in big development. Supervisor Culpa, you responded to an interview regarding the 11.4% tax increase by saying, and I quote, "It's a fallacy that the big upcoming projects are adding to the increased budget and taxes. They're not. These are 30-year projects with bonding that spreads out for a long time. The Boulevard Mall is cash neutral or positive to the town. The park spreads out over 30 years, and we're committed to a third grant right now." End quote. So given your original estimate for the LED conversion was $25 million with a $2 million annual savings, and it's actually $33 million plus interest of $13,206,788 with a $400,000 annual savings after all expenses are paid. What is the current cost projections of your park and mall projects? Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Julia Van Okay, Julie, please.
Hi, good evening. I'm Julie Van Lente, 116 Parkwood Drive, 30-year resident of Amherst. Just a couple of quick questions. Kind of fits with tonight. On the January 6th show on WBEN, the financial guys, they have offered the town of Amherst access to their staff to help find areas to save money. If the town accepts the offer, they will donate $5,000 to the SPCA. I volunteered there for several years. Will you accept this offer? First question. Next question. I keep digging, trying to learn who does what in the town, and Mr. Joe McMahon is chief of staff, so I'm wondering who reports to him. And the last question is a kind of simple one. You drive by Westwood, and there's a big red sign that says no trespassing, private property. Why is there a private property sign on the fence at Westwood? Because the town owns it, right? So I understand maybe some no trespassing. Just curious. Those are my 3 questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Kim Gable.
Oh, I gotta raise this way up. Good evening. My name is Kim Gable. I reside on President's Walk in Williamsville. I would just like to offer my overview of the last several board meetings, which I have attended each one. As I see it, the ongoing displeasure of the residents of this community stems from 2 places. The first is a general ire from a tax increase that no other municipality in the near vicinity has had to endure. You may point out that Amherst is a large community, and thus taxes must be higher. I would counter that argument with the fact that by our municipality being larger, there are many more people paying into that tax levy, thus our taxes should be lower. I would also like to point out that issues with the tax increase have more at this point to do with what our monies were actually spent on rather than the increase itself. If we had been informed that the bulk of the largesse was to go to improvement of, say, our crumbling infrastructure, our water and sewer lines that are constantly in a state of disrepair, or addressing actual blight in the community like Station 12, the residents perhaps would not have complained. However, large projects with no end in sight for dollars spent do not fit the bill and do not sit as well with the community who are struggling just to get by financially and have to do without extras, even as our community leaders think it's fine to spend that money on wants and not needs. The second place of displeasure for our residents stems from the ever-growing lack of transparency within our town board to our citizenry. Where there is a lack of transparency, it's hard to have trust. We elect our government representatives at each level, local, state, and federal, to be a voice for the masses. Lately, those voices for the masses have gone silent as more politicians place their focus on vying for campaign funds or re-election, pay-to-play schemes, and self-aggrandizement. In all levels of government, we seem to have lost our way in our mission to remain a constitutional republic with democratic ideals. Our elected officials are voted into positions to represent the needs of those they serve. Our local officials should have their focus solely on Amherst, not the county, and certainly not to forward any personal agendas. It's hard not to reach a level of frustration as meeting after meeting, residents come up to this podium armed with facts, data, graphs that they themselves have dug up and researched, yet every time the board forwards their agenda, regardless of protest to the contrary. Now, I did have to amend my end to say, I am appreciative of 22 Chateau Terrace. That's a great start, but we need to keep up that momentum going forward. Thank you.
Jane Cox, is Jane still here? You passing? Okay, all right. Shelley Schratz.
Shelley Schratz, Kensington Avenue. I just have a couple questions. There is a resolution that you're going to vote on that has to do with mutual confidentiality and non-disclosure agreement. Okay. We're talking about transparency. My understanding this has to do with Boulevard Mall, and you changed whatever the zoning. Again, this is another project that goes to the town board and not to the planning and the zoning board.
And I do think, because you're going to vote on this tonight, you either A, table it, and then have a conversation about it at a public hearing so the residents can ask questions and learn about it, or you explain it tonight and why. Because this all started with transparency. That's key. And my understanding of it is Benderson is now taking over Boulevard Mall as opposed to Jamal. I'm not sure. I think that people also need to know that. Okay, that's that. When recently I had a couple people approach me about the comments with the Chamber of Commerce, and so I went back and I looked at it today. And in the beginning, you thanked everyone at the Chamber of Commerce, the professionals, we couldn't be Amherst without them. We appreciate that. They're business people, do all different things. But the Amherst residents are considered irrelevant from a chair up there. How does that set end with people? You wonder why people come up here and they say the things that they say and they ask the questions that they ask. That's what we're allowed to do. But to be told things like that and then hear the supervisor praising all these people in a room, that's a little difficult for some people to handle. I'm personally used to it, but oh well. The budget, you've heard all about the budget. You've heard about everything. How many of you have been to Westwood? And I mean into the backyards of the people that live there, to feel it, to walk it. Well, you can't get in because it's all fenced out, all right? And I will gladly take you to some residents' homes. And I forgot what it was like, but I made it a point to stop there a couple weeks ago. And when I went in the back of her house, and then there's the window, and then there's the fence, her fence, and then the fence to Westwood. If it's 10 feet, it's a lot. And what you're proposing to put in their backyards, I think every board member and every resident who says it's a great deal should go to their backyards and see what you're asking to do. Because the people that are on the Erie County Golf Course over off Egger Road, they would never tolerate it. You wouldn't either. It's too close. It doesn't make sense. So there's been no transparency with sitting with the people again and going through what they want. And they don't want to, as you've heard tonight, they don't want to pay for musical fare, okay? They're not opposed to certain things, but they don't want to pay for musical fare and all that money. But they also don't want to pay for Royal Parkway for Damon College. The question is now, why are we paying for everything for Damon College? And I'll stop with this. When I was on the board with Debbie Buckeye, Sacred Heart needed a nurse. Went to the Amherst School District. School district said, we're not going to pay for a nurse. There was some kind of disease going around or something that the kids were going to get. We had to go to that school board and ask them to please pay for a school that has one nurse because our kids go to public grade schools. They agreed. But we're paying for colleges? That doesn't make sense. We have people in a nursing home or senior housing off of Mill Street. Now, you know about that. I don't know if you've done anything with that. They need a new roof. Historic preservation says, I'm going to finish with this. Historic preservation says they have to replace the roof. Now, this is off of Mill Street. People have lived there forever since they changed it, right? It's $7 million. The builder says, I can only do 4. Oh, guess what? Now we got to follow historic preservation and put how many senior citizens that live in Williamsville? You know that, okay? But when you look at it, it looks like it's starting to be developed. So transparency goes a long way, and it needs to start here.
Bob? No? Anything? No? Okay. Dennis, you're up.
It's okay.
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
Dennis, just one
I guess
more
I'm
second.
used to talking for my husband.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to thank you for choosing to landmark and the landmark designation for 22. I do want to say thank you very much because we've been working really hard on it. And I'm so proud of every person in this building, every neighbor, because we are apparently an extremely diverse group. And although we don't always agree, we all want this to see the same thing. We want to see a responsive town government. It's super late for me, and it's really late for everyone else. I wish I'd had the opportunity while the room was packed and media was here, but I'd like to just go briefly through what's been going on with my Squire application, okay? I followed all the rules back in March 23rd. There was resource information I became aware of by Jennifer Wilkowski from SHPO. It's the Squire shop is an historic building. It is individually eligible. It's determined state and national, individually eligible. It meets 3 of the criteria for inclusion on the National Register. I filed an application, and I believe you received it April 12th, 2023. That's directly to the HPC. You're all the town, though. 2 days later, I'd come across a correspondence that I know one of my neighbors put up there to James Baglioli of Benderson. And that correspondence, again, I want to reiterate, was signed by Dan Howard that said every building on this historic property, and most importantly, I feel this one that is individually eligible, should be heard by the HPC and considered for landmark designation. So we all thought that's what would happen, that we'd all get a chance to file an application. And I did it. I played by the book. I was told by the town back in June that I could submit additional information, new information, which I did, a nice big packet. And then I was told I contacted SHPO on July 20th. I was called by the town representative on the 24th of July and told that the local landmarking of Squire was on the agenda under old business, and it could be either adjourned or voted on, and then it disappeared. So, I mean, this is what we've been dealing with, and right now, as we speak, I'm watching the building being torn down. This is not ethical, and it's not transparent. Thanks.
Hello. Whoa. Dennis Hoban, 216 California Drive. I have some questions. They can be answered yes or no. Mr. Culpa, you stated at a recent meeting only commercial properties would be reassessed. That's not correct? Okay. We are being reassessed. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. I'm real curious about this, if there's a debt limit to how much the town can actually borrow, and if they raise the values of the homes and the businesses in the town of Amherst, will you be able to borrow more money? It's kind of a scary thought. I'm going to keep that in mind. So I've been calling around, doing a little investigation work into asking questions of some of the supervisors in Erie County. I even called some of the former supervisors because I thought that they would maybe be more honest. Do you know Melissa Hartman? Melissa Hartman? Mr. Culpa? Yes. Okay. I haven't been able to get a hold of her yet, but her name keeps popping up. And So I wanted to speak with her and some other supervisors as well. The clubhouse at the Westwood Country Club. What kind of shape is that in? I hear not very good. All right. Well, it was rumored that it's in disrepair. The roof is leaking. The floors are buckled. And I went to several events there, Mr. Culpa, and in the past, and it was a gem. I mean, it was a beautiful clubhouse, and it was extraordinary. It was like a little castle, actually. So I'd like to know what kind of condition that's in. If you'll tell us tonight that is in pristine condition, I think we should go down there and have a press conference there someday and check it out. Let's see. I actually took a drive over to the Red Roof Inn over on Maple and Millersport, and was asking. I was told it was government property. Apparently, there's some people that are housed there by the government. Are the Amherst taxpayers paying for that? These illegal immigrants or illegal aliens that are there? No? Okay. I don't know. I'm just asking. Also, somebody earlier asked about the sports center that you want to build on Royal Parkway exclusively for the use of Damon College. I don't get that. Apparently, there's like $6.6 million the residents of Amherst are paying, and then Damon College is chipping in $3.3 million. I don't understand why the town of Amherst is building a sports complex for Damon College. It's a private college. I don't understand that, but maybe you can explain that. So I guess that's it. Did you, pardon me? Do I have any time left? Did you say this Melissa Hartman, it came up that there was you donated a pretty large sum of money to her or her campaign? More than other, pardon me?
Sit down.
I'm sorry, what?
Your time is up.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you. And I'd like to thank the board, and it's great seeing everybody this evening. All right. And pardon me? Oh, what? Can I ask one last quick question? Please? Pretty please? He's not even here yet. Tom, get up here. Come on. Is Joe McMahon in the room? All right. Is Joe McMahon in the room? He's in the hallway? Are you Joe? Are you Joe?
Good evening, town board members, Supervisor Brian Culpa. My name is Thomas Frank, and I reside in the village of Williamsville in the town of Amherst. And I'd like to comment on the resolution 116 regarding the enhanced transparency and participation in the town of Amherst. As far as public participation of enhancement in a project that I've been working on for some time, I was in the village board meeting and gave this presentation regarding the agreement for ownership, financing, improvement, management, maintenance of Glen Park, and the section of the Amherst Central Park Greenway. That's the Ellicott Creek connection to the LWRP, the Local Waterfront Revitalization, to the two major connections in a resolution between the village and the town. One is the Naga River Greenway, as far as the Federal Energy Relicensing Commission, extending through 2050 for the Ellicott and Tonawanda Creeks, that the resolution is an agreement that connects Glen Park the agreement between the Village of Williamsville, a municipal corporation of the state of New York, with offices at 5565 Main Street in the Village of Williamsville, Town of Amherst, Erie County, New York, hereinafter called the Village and the Town of Amherst, a municipal corporation of the state of New York, and with offices at 5583 Main Street in the Village of Williamsville, Town of Amherst, Erie County, New York, hereinafter called the Town. That and the second connection that's important, having to do with upgrade of the village's community plan, which included the Greenway connection to the Greenway connection of Williamsville to the canal side, the Erie Canal National Heritage Corridor, the history that's outside the door here. The town of Amherst is in the Village of Williamsville. Oh, you're, oh, okay, thank you. It's good seeing you. Yes. I spoke to Roberta Rabacalio. Yes, regarding the resolution for the. Thanks, Tom. Go sit down. Yes, okay.
Okay. Kathy Ecolina, Maple Road. I was reading the lease for musical fair, and I guess I want to ask why we're putting $6.6 million into a building that we're going to collect in 30 years $30 in the lease. That doesn't make any sense. Plus, we are responsible to put in the HVAC system, the plumbing, etc., and make all repairs. I don't see where it's a win-win for us, but this town board just spends money like water. And also in reading about the Boulevard Mall, Maple Ridge Plaza on Maple and Sweet Home, and something called the Golden Triangle, they could build up to 10 stories. Now, I was told before that anything over, and I believe it's 4 stories, I could be wrong, has to be near an expressway, or it has to be within 1 mile of a tall building. This is not anywhere near the 10-story Marriott, and I don't see where the Boulevard Mall is near any expressway, nor the Maple Ridge. Yeah, it's kind of close to the 990, but to put that there is going to be so stupid. Anyways, 10-story buildings, it's idiotic. Who's going to pay for the fire equipment to go up 10 stories? That's a fire hazard. I know we are. So, I mean, it's really stupid what's being planned in this town, and it's a big waste of money, but nobody cares, and this board always votes yes. And I know I said this before, but with this board, it's just shut up and pay your taxes. And in talking about division, I want to go back to a December 4th meeting where it came up at the following meeting that the sign-in sheet was checked for people's political affiliation. That is, number one, by the chief of staff and one of the town, Mr. Irrelevant. That is both unethical and un-American. And why don't you change your sign-in sheet to put political affiliation if that's what you're so concerned about, because somebody may just disagree with you.
Good evening, town board members. My name is Don Smith, North Long. I'd like to echo the fact that I think the NDA should be put off for at least one meeting. And specifically, Number 4, compel disclosure of confidential information. When I try to unravel that phrase for phrase, it's torture. And frankly, I like to know what that's all about. I went through about 80 to 90 different random NDAs online. Never found that phrase or that paragraph in any of them. So I want to know what that one's for. Secondarily, I want to know who's bound by this NDA. Who specifically in the town, by name, who's bound by this? Because I've signed them. The idea is you have to be notified that you're a member, you're a party to the NDA. Now, does that mean somehow that all the employees of the town are bound by it? Because you say just the town of Amherst is a party. Does that mean the police department, highway department, town clerk's office, planning board, zoning board? Who's specifically bound? That's what we got to know. So that's probably something we can talk about if you decide not to vote it in this time. Okay, I'm going to get on to Resolution 2024-178, the musical fair. 3 minutes is not enough to really talk too much about it, so I just had to pick one thing. One section that sort of stood out to me, and I read the whole lease agreement, and I'm not happy to be able to do that. I really shouldn't have the time to do that. But in section 27, there's something called Memorandum of Lease, and I'll read it. Neither party shall record this lease in the Erie County Clerk's office. However, either party, upon request of the other, will execute a memorandum of this lease in recordable form. So it looks like this lease is essentially a promise to lease of some sort, a bind that doesn't bind. I just don't sort of get it. So the question again is who's bound by it and when are they bound by it? And finally, someday soon you're going to have to stop with this reading off the rules of behavior to the public. It just isn't working for you. It's working against you. You gotta acknowledge that. Maybe if you could ask for cooperation and just give it up and go back to a normal way of behavior, maybe you'll find that people here will do that too. But when you start asserting some sort of negative connotation to their comments, it's just going to come back to you and hurt you even more. It's probably politically stupid. So probably why don't you change it and go back to the way it used to be? Everybody liked it then, and you're going to have to do it sometime. So pick and choose. Thank you.
Yeah. Gerald Cantor, 930 Robin Road. Yeah, all right, the same as last time. I didn't understand a word that anybody said in this room. I don't know if it's a sound system or, but anyway, here we go. You hear me over there? All right, well, hee-haw, Bedford Falls. Happy leap year. Hope we leap in, Oh, God. Yeah, so when thinking about the Boulevard Mall, I'd like to keep a little mom and pop business in your minds, the screening room. It's never talked about. I just want to mention it. That's it. They work hard. Good little place to, catch a movie at a little cafe there. Other than that, I wrote a nice little email to the supervisor, and it's pretty much on the back of last time I was here. Use what exists. You don't have to excavate, tear down trees, land, and you'll get it all done. You'll get everything, profits, and the esteem of the constituency. So that's still twirling there. Next thing is, last thing, I feel it's going to be embarrassing for me. I don't mean to embarrass anybody by asking of the board. Maybe it's a lingering naivete or adolescence, but I find it pondering or preponderous, all the writing when I'm sitting there, and it's not to be a wise guy, but I don't know if anyone's ever asked, but like for instance, what was the last thing written on the paper? Is it what someone's speaking about, or, and I'm going to get to that, or is it a book, an encyclopedia? You know, I don't know. I'd like, because I was over at the Williamsville for a little while. There's no writing. Everybody sit there, you know, looking at the person. And again, I'm genuinely curious. The rest of my time, I'd like to even hear one sentence that was just written so I know what it is that 90% of the time, I don't think that's an exaggeration, someone is writing on the paper. Maybe it's scribbling, maybe it's...
The last thing I wrote down was the Boulevard Mall screening room. We need to keep it in mind, so.
Okay. Oh, so it's tangible drippings from the constituency. Thank you, Supervisor. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm move to close public expression.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna go through just a couple of the answers to some of these questions. The first thing, regarding the NDA or the non-disclosure agreement, so we can't make a transactional agreement with any entity that's not public. The town board's bound to hold those in public forum. However, in order to negotiate, when you have multiple vendors on the same site, right, there's multiple development interests there. Jamal, who I heard maybe Jamal's out, Jamal is part of the mall project, wants to be part of the mall project moving forward. So is Benderson. They both have interests in things that they're not going to disclose to each other as businesses. So I don't really think it's inappropriate for them to ask the town to enter into an NDA while you're talking to both, so that they can disclose finances and other issues with the town that they may not want the other developer to have. That's a perfectly normal way of doing business in any multiple party relationship, and private sector anticipates that you're going to do that. Regarding the Boulevard Mall height and who pays for fire equipment, Eggertsville hose is planned, ladder truck is 110 feet. That limits the height to a 10-story possibility. 10 stories allows for hotel and allows for some multifamily housing. And again, we're trying to maximize the value of that site. That is not in front of this board yet. The planning board just took a recommending action on it. That will be coming forward as a public hearing. Regarding the clubhouse at Westwood, the roof, there is 2 roof leaks that we know of. We have plans to repair those. The majority of the clubhouse is in very good shape. Our plan is to simply restore it as is, and be able to access that publicly. Right now, like I said, there are 2 known leaks. There were leaks that have been there for a few years, so there's some plaster damage in the inside, but there's no structural deterioration associated with it. Regarding the sports center with Damon College, we're building town public fields and town tennis courts, a field and a tennis court Damon College and the splash pad. The Damon College agreed to say they wanted access to it. They agreed to come in with significant money to access the field. But it is a town field first, and it is town tennis courts first. They're just being built with Damon in mind, and Damon is basically coming in with money. We lease our ice pads to colleges. It's a typical scenario, except that they're coming in with money up front. Similar to the musical fair lease, it's about money up front. The town is building a public theater building. Musical fair has was looking for a place to inhabit and agreed to pay for a third of the construction costs on the front end. It equals out to about $125,000 to $150,000 a year in lease, except that they're paying for it up front. Regarding the town still has access to the facility. Regarding the design of the town park, regarding weather and the ice loop, these past few winters have made us question a lot of things. Don't know, right? In the future, don't know exactly what's going to come into that park. Right now, we're planning musical fair. We're planning to renovate the driveway in from North Forest, the access points with the parking lots. We're building a playground, which is funded through that grant, and a splash pad, which is funded through a grant. And that's the extent to which we're currently heading towards construction in an area that we've studied fairly intensively with DEC looking over our backs. As far as archives and electronic storage, I've started talking to the state about what is and is not allowed electronically. Certainly there are some artifacts that are not. We'll see what happens with regards to that. In terms of the Citizens Fiscal Advisory Board, or the Fiscal Advisory Board did meet in October, did go through this budget with our comptroller and our finance director in detail as a full board. I don't know why those minutes haven't been published online, but they certainly did, and certainly did meet about all of that in October. And came out of there with recommendations to proceed. Regarding the mall demolition, I heard somebody mention $10 million for mall demolition. Our intent as a town board is not to deal with the demolition of the mall. Would be to have the private sector deal with that later on, and whether that's full or partial, I don't know. Although it sounds like we're gonna be looking out for the screening room specifically. They have, by the way, expressed interest in being part of a project moving forward. There are some other questions here with regards to the FOIL board. Those items, thank you for giving us the detail that you submitted to me. I have to go through that with our attorney to see where state law and the town law intersect. We will do that, and I appreciate you handing that to me. Regarding 4560 Main Street and demo permits, he's gone. I don't know which buildings are under permits, which ones aren't. Specifically, that ties into your question about landmark status and what happens with applications. I don't know. I'm not running that process. I will find out. That is something that we'll try to get back to you about. We will deal with that in the morning. And then I guess the last, what's that? Dollars on the gas meter, and I found out why an electric meter got pulled. Yeah, I know. I've got to deal with this gas meter, and we've got to go. But I got it. Thank you. I'm not going to go through each and every one of these. Those are the big ones. We'll get after. Golden Triangle is non-official term that gets used for the area between the 290 Maple Road and Millersport, and it's the area with the Marriott Hotel. That's what somebody was referring to. I don't know in which context. So that's that. I'm not going to refer to, or not going to talk about my own personal politics with regards to supporting candidates in this room. Happy to have that discussion after. Regarding all of that, we do have a consent agenda this evening. I'm going to ask our town clerk to please read the consent agenda.
Councilmember Zucala, 1. Town Attorney, 1, 3, 4, 5. Building maintenance, 1, 2. Controller, 1, 2, 3. Contract compliance, 1, 2, 3, 4. Court, 1. Highway, 1, 2. Human resources, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Planning, 1. Police, 1. Senior services, 1. Sewer plant, 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Communications, first one referred to clerk and senior services. Second one referred to clerk, planning, and attorney. Third referred to attorney. Fourth referred to attorney. Fifth referred to attorney. And sixth referred to attorney. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm going to motion the consent agenda as it just appeared first.
Second.
On the question, I'm going to motion to amend the consent agenda to remove resolution 2024-203 for the purpose of further amending that resolution.
Second.
All in favor of the amendment?
You need to say
And then
what the amendment is.
I just said for the.
Because he's pulling it out first.
That.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought
All
you
in favor of the
amended.
amendment to the consent agenda.
Aye.
I'll motion the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is Resolution 178. A motion, a lease agreement with Musical Fair Theater Company Incorporated, CRS 4622.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is that resolution pulled off of consent, Resolution 2024-203. I'm going to motion the original resolution as it appeared.
Second.
And I'm going to motion to amend it to strike the insurance waiver line in the document.
Second.
All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
I'll motion the original resolution as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now I'm going to motion to open a second round of public expression.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, let's close it.
One speaker.
I need to catch Shelley before.
This is Allison Segraves. Could you just clarify what exactly happened with Musical Fair?
Passed unanimously.
Okay, so I would like to speak on behalf of moms here who have kids that have purchased homes in this town, and you know, families that have next generations. I cannot imagine that we are signing a 30-year exclusive lease with a boomer musical company. I mean, I love Musical Fair. I've gone to many of their productions, but this seems like the height of lack of diversity, lack of inclusivity, to give an exclusive lease to a musical theater company. We have a town that is increasingly diversifying, and isn't it ironic that the head of the board is the former town supervisor? I mean, you wonder why people are here asking questions about transparency, asking about whose pockets are being lined. This makes no sense that you are signing up for 30 years. And I mean no disrespect to the terrific people that have put on amazing productions at Musical Fair, but to bind this town to a 30-year exclusive agreement with one theater company, which precludes anyone else from performing in that building, is an outrage. And I can't believe that you pass it with so cavalierly. You don't care about anybody in this town except yourselves and your friends and your political sidekicks. It's really outrageous. outrageous. And quite frankly, you deserve everything that you're hearing from people because you do not listen, you do not look, you do not respect the people in this town. And I've been here to be called irrelevant. I've been hassled by your sidekick out in the hall, and we've had it. And this is just the beginning.
Chris Strongoski, Youngs Road. In the contract, what about cost overruns of the building? They gonna pick up 33% of that? No, let them answer.
The contract is capped at 10 million.
So we're capping the building at 10 million, they're paying 33%. So if this building, based on previous experience of what's going on around here, probably run about 20 million. And so it's a whole different.
Expenditures cap. Thanks, Chris.
I still have 3 minutes. Or 2.5 minutes. I hate to keep you awake. I still haven't seen any, Ms. Marinucci, I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. The no minutes, no agenda on the Recreation Commission. You go back over a year and a half, I don't think they've met 4 or 5 times.
Chris, they have been meeting, and they're all posted on, I'm the liaison to the Rec Commission.
what
Go
happened to the
look
last-
on
what happened
the
to the last year and a half?
website.
They're not posted. They're not posted on the town website.
Mary Diana said she checked and that there. I will check with IT tomorrow and find out what the problem is.
We'd like to know what's going on. I know you'd like to continue raising all the recreational fees out of sight, but, the town attorney asks us to abide by rules and the laws of the town, and yet you can't even abide by your own laws or state law for open meetings.
Anybody else?
Dave Howard, 194 Roycroft. Just because I just heard the Damon College thing, we're building a sports complex. Don't we have that right across the street at Central Amherst High School? I'm not getting it, I guess.
It's a complex. So we have, aside from the high schools, we have municipal needs, right? We have soccer that plays on in municipal facilities. We have tennis, both organized and unorganized, that play in municipal facilities. We have needs for new pickleball facilities. There are other town needs other than what's currently met by the high schools.
There's tennis courts at the high school.
There are.
Tennis courts at the middle school.
There are. But they are not open and accessible at all times to town residents. We have a continued need expressed for all those facilities.
Those are pretty much empty most of the day.
The schools won't let us use
I'm
them.
just thinking of, we need to save money, and here we are spending it on a college, and we have facilities right across the street.
Again, we're building town facilities, right? We have.
It'd be okay if it's on town land. It's not even on town land.
It is on town. We're building at Royal Park. It's a town park. We're renovating a town park.
What park?
Royal Park. Okay. So we're renovating a town park. It has 2 old, no longer used baseball diamonds. It has
It
tennis
has a
courts.
lovely playground that we did a community build in a few years ago.
It has a playground, but it doesn't have a lot else. The parking lot needs repair. The tennis courts need repair. They're not. We did. We brought all of the neighbors in for a conversation. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Not the neighbors you talk to. I'm going to motion to close public expression.
Second.
All in favor? I'm going to motion to adjourn the board meeting.